What do you get when you cross a know-it-all newspaper columnist with an awkward, unsophisticated everyman?
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure about that right now.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube.
Welcome to Couch in the Rube, presented by Skymint Premium Cannabis, inspiring people to look better, be better, feel better. Just be better people every damn day of their lives. And our Sunday night show, now presented by Muskox Quality Flannels. That's right, new sponsor alert here. Jason and I are really excited about this. We have Muskox Flannels headed our way. Pretty fired up to share our experience with them. Muskox is a Detroit-based men's apparel company that creates durable and high-quality flannels that are built to last a lifetime. We'll get more into them throughout the show, throughout the weeks. We are really excited to have them aboard. You can go to gomuskox.com. That's GOMUSKOX.com to order your flannel today. Jason, how you doing, man?
Well, speaking of shirts, the Caw shirts are going to be sent out tomorrow. They are finished.
Sweet.
Thanks, Tree. So finish those up today. We'll get those sent out Monday afternoon.
Fantastic.
So you should have them by the Michigan game, hopefully for sure.
Trees is the best.
The bye week, yeah.
Just the best.
Absolutely. I did a few things, but she did most of it.
That's pretty much the story of your life, right?
1,000%. Yes.
That is awesome. All right, we are going to, as we always do, dig into our hot takes and yours. Lots to get into. Many hot takes from you guys. This could be a long show.
Did the Skymint hit yesterday, or did Michigan State win? Like, what happened? They won, right?
The Skymint hit.
Okay.
But so they did not win. No, I'm kidding. They did win. I do want to give people a reminder, though. Like, if you only have one hot take and it's fantastic, you only have to send one in. Because we've got a lot of hot.
Personal.
It's not personal.
Sounds like a guy that does the hot takes.
I'm just saying we got a lot of. There's some repetitive ones tonight that I tried to smooth out so it's not so repetitive.
Take your best one if you think, If
you got something great, if you have one, yeah, it'll always get in and it'll always be pretty high in the show. Just saying. So I'm just going to put that out
an
there.
Incentive.
An incentive, right? To just have one. We'll dig into those here, but let us begin as we always do with our hot takes. Jason, do you want to begin?
Yes, I'll begin. Listen, I'm happy for Scottie Hazelton because he kept his job for the bye week and through the Michigan game. I like the way how the defense responded, how Hazelton kind of coached those guys. Those guys had effort. What concerns me, Graham, is the coaching staff, and I'm talking about Mel Tucker. Did Mel think at the end of regulation that he had a 5-star kicker? And some of these things, like I know the team played well, Wisconsin's ass, and I appreciate Scottie Hazelton again for not letting Graham Mertz throw for 500 yards. But I'm dumbfounded with the lack of discipline of the players and the way the clock was managed, especially at the end of the game. So I can't wait for tomorrow to hear how Mel responds to this, and maybe I don't know. But it's just I'm more concerned about Mel Tucker right now than Jay Johnson or Hazelton right now, because that was some parts of that game were a fucking embarrassment.
It was the end was not great, and there were a couple things that weren't great about it. And we're not going to hear anything from Mel Tucker tomorrow because it's a bye week and he does not have a press conference.
Well,
because he's off recruiting.
Give him a call.
Yeah, Mel, listen, we've got questions. You need to get this answered. I know you're with a 5-star offensive tackle.
Are you getting a kicker?
So I'm with you because there are a few things that were problematic on the final drive of regulation. One was early on, just sort of this really using timeouts on runs when you don't have that much time left, so you didn't have timeouts at the end, right? I didn't think that was great.
No.
But the real problem wasn't so that there's management issues there in terms of the clock. But the final play, when you've been sort of using one side of the field, and I didn't have a problem with going to the other side of the field. It was very obvious to the other defensive back on that side of the field who was guarding the other receiver on that side of the field exactly what they were doing. Yeah. They were going to throw to Jaden Reed, and he was able to come up, make the tackle, and then you've got a fire drill with a kicker. And the fire drill thing wasn't even that bad if you just didn't have a second string snapper, because he might have made the kick. I don't think – sometimes I don't have a problem with fire drill kicks in this sense. The kicker doesn't have time to think.
And if you have Justin Tucker.
Or you just have an accomplished kicker. And they were going at the time with Ben Patton, who's kicked a game winner at Auburn and been in really big games.
Yeah.
But the problem is knowing you have a second string snapper. That's the guy you're more worried about.
And you're saying that. Shouldn't Mel Tucker kind of know that? And be, we need to get further down the field to get as close as we can instead of trying to throw it in the middle of the field and not have a timeout. Like you said, with a backup, snapper, long snapper, you need the timeout to make sure he's set and ready to go. I don't know if you can do a fire drill with a guy with a backup.
Yeah, it was not inspiring at the end. There's no question about that. Michigan State's players bailed him out, and obviously that was a great.
And bravo to the players. I mean, they could have given up a couple times in that game, and they didn't. So I just was more concerned with Mel Tucker than Hazelton, and I know people were offended by Jay Johnson at times. So
I thought, look, I thought Hazelton had a good day, and I'll get into that here.
Yeah.
Which eventually was about time, right? So, all right, my first hot take. If Michigan State had not perfect health, but good health at critical positions this year, which doesn't always happen, by the way. You got to build depth in college football. But had they done it, they might have covered the over 7.5 wins this year. So I don't think we were as off on that. Where we were off is their depth wasn't as good as I thought. Obviously, the Kenneth Walker impact was even greater than I thought. So there were things that we weren't right because I thought they'd be better than 7.5. I thought it was the right side of things. But what you see yesterday with the additions of Jacob Slade, who's an all Big Ten defensive tackle, and the impact that has on Simeon Barrow, and what you see with Xavier Henderson back there, and then what you see with Jaden Reed 100% as himself again. We had not seen that Jaden Reed all year. That guy who just has got swagger. I mean, he tweeted after his game-winning catch in double overtime something like, shit wasn't 50-50. Like, that was not a 50-50 ball. Like, he knew he was going to get it. Like, that guy has swagger, confidence. He has the feel of a star right now. He threw one touchdown in overtime and then caught the other pass. He returned a kickoff for a punt for a touchdown, even though it was called back. Like, that guy.
Most receivers have that swagger, though.
Right, but he's showing it's earned. It's deserved, right? He's a phenomenal player. And you start to look back at the Washington game and you go, without those guys, how dumb were we to think they ever had a chance out in Seattle? Like what I mean, you can just see the trickle down effect on other receivers and how those guys weren't really ready yet. You see it on the defense. And when you talk to Xavier Henderson, I mean, Xavier Henderson, if he were in this studio right now with us, this would be a better podcast because he'd be communicating well. He'd see issues well ahead of time that we're going to fuck up later. Like,
it's like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, he would.
This guy's for real? People listen to this shit?
Well, that would be one of his questions. But in other words, you can talking to Jacoby Winmont about him, it was like you can hear him back there. It's the nuances he sees. Look, they're trying to do this offensively, and he yells at a corner who then does something and knows something that he wouldn't know in another week and going into a play. It just makes such a difference, right? And just a heady kid. And then you have heady kid. The guy's like 30 at this point. But and then you have Jacoby Winmont, who at linebacker, and that move, this is the one that bothers me. Because had they made that move a couple weeks ago, I think maybe you've got a different result somewhere. Not Ohio State. You're not going to beat Ohio State because Winmont, you're playing a 4-3 and Winmont's at linebacker. But I do believe that, first of all, I believe they would not have gone 0-3 against the teams prior to Ohio State, Minnesota, Maryland, and who was the other team they went on? They lost to. Give me that. Give me some Hoff. What do we got here? Call. Instead of boo, call. Thank you for not helping me on this.
No.
You don't.
What'd you say? You need a team? Maryland.
Oh, Washington. I just said Washington. I forgot. I was
just about to tweet that out.
Yeah, thanks. You're great.
Oh.
I don't think they would have gone 0-3 in that stretch. I don't know where the win would have come. But to me, it was very clear how much more of an impact Winmont could have playing linebacker. I mean, he had 11 tackles, 2 for loss. He looked great in coverage. You read that going to the tight end easily. And the fact that the coaching staff didn't realize that. Now, early on against MAC opponents, he was very effective as a defensive end, but that wasn't happening. He was just limited on who he could be as a leader, as a playmaker, and they should have seen that. They should have gone to the 4-3 earlier. Having said that, they at least did it in time to rescue their season to some degree. And they did it timed with the time that Xavier Henderson came back, which I think helped, because he's a guy who can, new defense, okay, we got a guy who can understand it back here for everybody. Jaden Reed comes to full strength, and you get a win that absolutely saves your season. To what degree, I don't know, but the alternative is why it saved. Like, people go, they didn't save their season. They're still 3-4. Yeah, but they're not 2-5 feeling awful about themselves.
That loss would have hurt, for sure.
Goodness. And not only that, it would have been worse than some other losses in some ways, because they would have given this away. This was not a perfect game. I mean, I thought they played really hard. I thought they showed some things that give you hope that they might be competitive in a couple games we're not sure yet if they'll be competitive in terms of the offensive playmakers, the offensive line holding up a little bit, some of the things the defenses did. Because if you're Michigan State at this point, you're thinking you got to beat Indiana, you got to beat Rutgers, and if you want to get bowl eligible, you need one upset. Now, everybody and their mother would love that to be Michigan, but that looks like a pretty big chore. But you certainly feel better about your opportunity to be competitive in that game than you did going into the Wisconsin game. And Penn State looks like, who knows where their heads will be at the end of the year. Illinois may be the toughest game of them all.
Penn State's ass.
Yeah. So that may be an opportunity. You're going into State College at the end of the year. Michigan State could absolutely be 3-6 and still playing State College 3 weeks later to go 6-6 and get in a bowl game. I just thought that.
So if I'm reading the tea leaves, like as you like to say, that you're saying that Michigan State after the bye week is going to beat Michigan.
I did not say that.
You heard it here first.
I did not say
Graham
that.
Couch picks Michigan State.
They had nearly 200 yards in penalties, and yes, I'm counting the 80 yards called back on the punt return touchdown. They were undisciplined in some ways. They had some coaching. Scottie Hazelton may have had the best day of any of the coaches, right?
You have to give him credit for not getting torched by Graham Mertz.
Well,
that's all it takes.
But let's be fair.
Yeah, we are being fair.
This is a results-oriented business, as they always say, and that's why he's been getting torched week after week on this program and other throughout social media. Fans have been frustrated, and so when the defense makes some changes, shows up and performs, keeps a team under 300 total yards, he deserves some credit, and that's absolutely fair. And that's, again, I don't know what Mel Tucker's thinking in terms of his staff at the end of this year. But if you're Scottie Hazelton, you've got 5 more games to keep showing improvement. And not every week's going to go perfect. Different teams are going to have different levels of quarterbacks and other things like that. But if you see marked improvement week after week, that's really all. But
isn't it concerning? You're talking about Windman being, switched to switching positions, and also Elijah Collins. Of course, they gave him 13 carries yesterday,
yep.
But you're not seeing when he's hot and when he's not, and using him in that fashion, and that kind of concerns me about the coaching staff.
Yeah, I do think they were behind the 8 ball on Collins a little bit. Like, we all saw a little bit of Collins and thought, boy, more of that probably. And it took them a minute to get there. And if you're a coaching staff, you never want to be behind the fan base on those sort of things, because that sort of lends itself to the idea that you're not seeing things, and so I thought that probably should have happened a little more. The timing of it wasn't great, because you get the Ohio State game was the game after he sort of showed out a little bit, and nobody got to run the ball. And then he ran the ball 13 times, and they used him with Berger. And I thought Berger was effective in this game. And so
playing his former team?
Yeah, and you're certainly not going to not start Berger against Wisconsin. You want to lose a kid who's been waiting since he transferred to do that game? He's been your starter all year, and you choose that game to do it?
No, there's not really a clear number one anyway.
Yeah.
It's not a Make-A-Wish Foundation by any means, but.
All right, what is your second hot take?
The Detroit Lions, Graham, even when they have a bye week, they lose. Did you see some of the teams and what happened this week? Will Birchfield tweeted this out. Nick Sirianni took over a 4-win Eagles team. They're now 5-0, probably going to be 6-0 here. Salah took over a 2-win Jets team, now 4-2. Arthur Smith took over a 4-win Falcons team. Now they're 3-3. I don't know if that's impressive. But Dan Campbell took over a 5-win Lions team. Now he's 1-4. He's won 4 games in almost a year and a half, a season and a half, Graham. Do we get concerned after this bye week, after you're seeing this stuff? How much should fans take as a rebuild kind of looms? You use that word, and you see other teams like the Jets today. They looked impressive going into Green Bay. And this NFC North is up for grabs, and we're going to leave it. I don't know who's going to win this, the Minnesota Vikings, but it's just frustrating year in and year out having to hear the same old, well, we need to rebuild, we need to do this, and you watch other teams do it. Is it because we can't get any free agents?
No,
I know it's a lot that has to do with the draft, with drafting, but do we have a coach that we trust in Dan Campbell? And after the bye week, they go to Dallas, and if they get blown out there, then what?
Yeah.
And the Ford family they're not going to fire him mid-season, right?
No,
that's not something that
and
they would do.
I don't know that you need to, because what you knew you hired a young coach who's got to prove himself, and to me, you got to give him at least 2 seasons to do it. Now, at the end of these 2 seasons, if it's like this guy doesn't make wise decisions, and we've seen enough, you're 3-13-1 or whatever you are again. It's like, okay.
But I mean, how long do you give him? Is what my question. I mean, if he wins 4 games this year, do you bring him back again?
I don't,
because you like him.
I don't think so. No,
I don't think you can.
But to me, I want 4-3. I want the quarterback this year for the Lions. So at this point, I'm all on the let it fall apart.
So this is why the Lions are extra ass, because you have to root for all this terrible stuff, and you have Jared Goff who puts up 300 yards but can't win a big game. I mean, it's just the whole season's ass, and I'm just wondering, watching all of these other teams have like semi-success or starting to build that, like the Tigers and the Baltimore Orioles. The Baltimore fucking Orioles is what we wanted the Tigers to be this year, and they're not it either. I don't want to sit around here and do 5-year plans, and because Dan Campbell's a good quote and he's a funny guy and he bites kneecaps and shit, but I don't care. If he wins 4 games, you have to move on. It's just not working.
I seriously thought like this would be the week there would not be a Lions hot take. I'm impressed. I'm impressed that you.
Well, it's just watching what some other teams were doing today and
No.
seeing that tweet by Will Birchfield going like, yeah, like what the fuck, man? Because we get into this like, oh, we're going to drink the Kool-Aid this year, and we want to desperately, and the Hard Knocks comes, and then they're just complete ass, and their coaching staff. I mean, there's a big question mark with Dan Campbell. Can he be an X's and O's guy? And I just don't want to wait and sit around. Get a young guy like these other teams are doing. LaFleur, the guy in Miami who looks like a cocaine dealer. I mean, get somebody who's 27 years old. I don't give a shit.
Well, so
we've tried everything else.
Here's the thing, and we saw it with the Pistons when they finally got the right guy in Troy Weaver. Shit can move fast when you get the right people running your organization, and we'll see what Brad Holmes is able to do here. We've seen
it's not a good start. I got to say, the Brad Holmes era started with him trading Stafford to his former team and not getting the proper amount of compensation for it.
Stafford didn't look that good. I think they got rid of him at the right time.
I understand that, but for the market for a quarterback, you should definitely get more than what he got from the Rams.
Okay. My second hot take. So, biggest game of the week was probably Tennessee's win over Alabama, which was, by the way, a great money line play and a good plus 7.5 play.
And 8.5.
And 8.5 play. Whatever you got at 9.5. Whatever the thing closed at, it was ridiculous. And there were lots. The Illinois game, if you were able to parlay 2 home underdogs on the money line, you could make mad bank here.
You almost said mad loot, didn't you?
I did try. Yeah, I'm trying not to sell it like I did when I was 13. But I will caution the Tennessee fan and the media out there proclaiming everything that's going on with Tennessee football is a program that has arrived and is whatever. It's a great moment. You shouldn't. But Tennessee beating Alabama in year 2 under Josh Heupel isn't really that much more impressive than MSU beating Michigan a year ago in year 2 under Mel Tucker.
Oh, wow.
Just beware, Tennessee fans, what could happen year 3 when recruiting classes from yesteryear come home to roost, because this particular Alabama team, who I've now seen play, I think 3 times quite a bit, is not any better than last year's Michigan team, which made the playoff. I mean, this is not the typical Alabama team. The only difference I would say here is that Michigan controlled a lot of that game in East Lansing, and Michigan State wound up winning, and Tennessee controlled more of this game. But this idea that, like, it's how soon you forget. Like, people react so much to one year to the next, where Tennessee could absolutely deal with what MSU is dealing with a year from now. So I would just slow
Are you shitting on
them.
Tennessee fans? I mean, a day after they win, they can't have like one day to celebrate and then back to normal. I mean, yeah, I felt like, the cigars, busting those out, and I mean,
I just wanted to do it.
I understand that, but it just seemed, I was like, man, it's a little too much. Yeah, you beat Alabama, but man, act like I know you kind of haven't been there before, but holy hell.
Been 15 years.
It's a long time for sure.
Okay. All right, what is your third hot take?
Impressive. Scott Harris, get the Detroit Tigers into the playoffs. How great were the baseball playoffs over the weekend, Graham?
Incredible.
Mariners beat 1-0 by the Astros in 18 innings. Now, let me ask you, as a Tigers fan, playoffs? We're at a Tigers game, and it goes 18 innings. Do you make it the whole 18 innings?
Yes.
A playoff game, yes.
Yeah,
not a regular season game.
Yeah. I'm in.
You stay for 18
yes,
Over, what did someone say, 9 hours? No, they said 9 hours.
I think it was 6 hours.
I thought it was 9, like, tailgate and all that stuff beforehand. You're there for 9 hours. Anyway, I got to say, I mean, a playoff game,
because
that's a long-ass time.
What's
man.
incredible about it is it's starting with the runner on second every single inning. So it's not even like the old days where even before that would be incredible. But the fact that there was a runner in scoring position to start.
No, they didn't. They got rid of that rule for the playoffs.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, that's why it went 18 innings.
That explains so much. I've been just baffled by how are these teams so inept.
If that was 1-0 with an MFer on second for 18 innings.
Oh my God! I was like, these bullpens are incredible. The Tigers are so far away. Like this, if all these bullpens, they got a runner in scoring position. They're just blowing through this.
No,
that explains a lot.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, that was a marathon for a reason. But anyway, the Dodgers-Padres game last night that lasted till 2 a.m., the playoff baseball feel, the night at the fall night baseball, I'm desperate to get back to that somehow. And Scott Harris, please get us back there sooner than later, because I'm sick of hearing the rebuild word.
My third, I'm with you, because you see the crowd at Petco Park, and they haven't had a home game in 16 years or whatever there, and you just see the delirious joy, and you remember when the Tigers are making their run, especially that initial run in 2006, just to get that back, and what that does in terms of this entire state is just galvanized behind the team. It is fun in October. I hope we are.
Was your third hot take going to be they should get rid of the runner at second?
No, my third hot take.
Or add a runner?
Third hot take. Today, Manchester City played Liverpool in a game that absolutely screwed me betting. It was part of my can't miss parlay. The other two legs hit. Loved Chelsea and loved Tennessee, and probably should have been on Illinois instead of Manchester City. And what I missed was Liverpool. Even though they've struggled in some other games, they can still rise up and be as good once as they ever were, especially when they're playing Man City and they were at home. And right away you could see, I was like, I don't like this, and I started hedging. But the reason I wanted to say this is if you are at all into or all curious about soccer, so you're not Jason, I tweeted out, this was the game to flip to. The energy, it is Bills Chiefs. It's the best two teams, maybe the best two clubs sometimes in the world, certainly the best two clubs in England. And the passion in the stands is different than even an NFL game, because just the back and forth action. And I know people think about the score. Oh, it was 1-0. When are you watching the scoreboard when you're watching an NFL game or an NBA game? No, you're watching the action. The action was thrilling. You don't sit there looking at the scoreboard. The action was thrilling. They had one goal that was taken away that was right after a missed opportunity by Liverpool, and then Salah scored later on a breakaway. Just incredible end-to-end action. One of the better games I've seen in a long time.
He coaches the Jets too and plays soccer.
It's pretty amazing that he does both on a Sunday. I mean, it's remarkable. They have this
Deion Sanders flying in,
very quick flight. Anyway, I just when that game pops up, the rematch, get yourself there on a Sunday morning, because it is absolutely worth your time. All right, are you ready to dig into these listener hot takes?
Of course. Eric Schultz up first. Number one, give a ton of credit to MSU's players. In a season that could have spiraled into a disaster, they've shown they're going to fight like hell. 2, this team would be going to a bowl game if Henderson hadn't got hurt. And 3, that said, this is not a well-coached team. Bad penalties, gruesome play calls, and personnel decisions, mostly on offense, bad time management, and too many guys who have no clue what they're doing. The competence us fans loved a year ago is long gone, and that's worrisome.
No, I think that's the thing people fear a little bit, is that this team doesn't look like the group for 8 weeks a year ago. And the penalties this time were, I mean, it was rough. The
late hit penalties.
Yeah,
it's
you can't have the targeting thing, the personal foul, the unsportsmanlike conduct stuff. That stuff you gotta. And Mel Tucker talked about that there's sort of two types of penalties, right? There's the ones that are aggressive and just happen and whatever, but then there are the stupid ones, and you got to eliminate the stupid ones, because if they had lost this game, it would have been on them and the stupid penalties and then also probably the time management at the end. Like, that would have made this game so much worse. I don't know, worse than Minnesota. That was a pretty damning, deflating loss, but it would have been worse than certainly Washington or Maryland. Because this was a game that was a huge moment that you absolutely had a chance to win. You had played well enough to win. You had done some things you hadn't in the past. You had found some things about yourself, at least against Wisconsin, who isn't the top of the league certainly right now. It would have been. they would not have been able to come back from it. I really think that if they had lost that game, I don't want to say 2-10 for sure, because if Xavier Henderson's healthy, and
are we talking about guys quitting?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I do think there's decent leadership in certain areas, so I don't think it would have been like a complete fall, but it would have just been misery for another month because they wouldn't really had an opportunity to win a game, I don't think, until Rutgers. Rutgers.
Dominic next. Number 1, I was there when Ebling was at the strip club. Chastity Butterfly inquired about a lap dance, but Ebling just offered her a hypothetical. Chastity, if I told you that you could keep all your clothes on, but you have to shower in your clothes after work, what would you say? That's so accurate. 2, the sequence at the end of regulation was piss poor and a failure of the staff. Not sure who you think is coming through that tunnel or what personnel on special teams you think you have, but wake up and view reality. And please pretend to know how downs and game clocks work. 3, the use of the shotgun for so many teams on goal-to-go situations inside the 3-yard line is mind-boggling. It's okay to do lineup under center, especially if you're running the ball. So weird why you're cool starting 4 to 5 yards back.
Yeah, shotgun, not shot clock. But yes, that was interesting because on the play that the Elijah Collins run, the failed 4th down run at the goal line, it was just weird. I can't figure out if Horst just whiffed on the block or if Collins ran to the wrong spot or how it all went down. But ultimately, when you start in a shotgun, it's I don't love that necessarily. But Collins basically ran into 2 dudes just waiting for him unblocked. It was bizarre. I do think, this and there's some other hot takes coming about Michigan State staff, so we'll get into more of this. But I do think that a lot of confidence has been lost, and it's going to take moments where things go really well above and beyond to get it back. Like you think about that Miami game we've talked about so much last year, where everybody who watched that game left that game thinking that's a well-coached, well-prepared, well-nutritioned, well-conditioned team that just went down to Miami and won a game. That's a lot of competence in the program. And they're going to need something where they handle the clock well late, they make some decisions late, the team plays above itself. And I'll tell you what, if somehow you go to Ann Arbor and you do that, everybody will think like that. Mel Tucker's got the not the easiest, I shouldn't say, but the quickest possible fix ahead. There will not be one criticism of him on this show or anywhere from Michigan State fans if he goes to 3-0 against Michigan and somehow beats them.
Maybe me be next. Number 1, MSU's coaches aren't holding players accountable. Jared Horst is holding and now devolving into unsportsmanlike conduct. Peyton Thorne has thrown almost as many interceptions as TDs. 2, the field goal kicker has no confidence. The end of regulation game winner was a missed opportunity for him. And 3, if Xavier Henderson is the only one on defense with a brain, they have to start recruiting with IQ tests, VR simulations, or something which proves football IQ.
I do think you ought to recruit to leaders, and I'm not saying you want to recruit slow guys who are leaders. Like I would be a pretty good leader on defense, but I would get left in the dust because I'm slow as shit. But what I mean by that is if all things are equal, or a guy's a 2 or 3 star kid and he's got certain and Xavier Henderson was a good recruit. I'm not saying, like, it just makes such a difference when you listen to him talk. You're like, you want that guy in your team. You want that guy in your secondary. You want that guy in your coaching staff. You want that guy in your business. And those guys don't change that much from their junior year in high school until they grow up, they get more confident, but you can see that trait in them, and it ought to be recruited much more often.
Max Spade next. Number 1, Xavier Henderson saves Hazelton's job. Switching into a 4-3 still wouldn't work without Xavier. 2, Mark D'Antonio would have called that a program win, but they still haven't proven anything. And 3, Summer of '69 is a terrible song about a loser who tells the audience that he peaked at 17.
I love that's been on Max's mind and has a place to share it. That's what the show is for, that outlet.
Oh, there's like 2 things playing. Oh, shit. Never mind. All right,
I don't know what's going on there.
All right, 2 videos playing.
Oh, gotcha.
Sorry.
The idea that Mark D'Antoni, it wasn't a program win in certain ways, and it wasn't other. Like when I think of a program win, you can argue it is. You could argue the game against Penn State last year was. You can argue this was. Certainly, you can argue the Miami game was. It's certainly the quintessential example is the Minnesota game in 2012 that we've referenced along a lot when they had to decide to want to play and play a bowl game. That set up the next year. It's sort of sometimes program games aren't as obvious in the moment. Like this could absolutely be a program game if this season winds up being 6-6.
And it was a must-win game.
Yeah, you can argue it a program game, but you're right. You sort of have to prove something after it to make something a program win. If you just,
Is it a program win, though? Because you were mentioning possibility if they did lose that game, you have to blame it on yourself, and the team starts to disband, the locker room gets angry. I mean, that makes it a kind of a program win then.
The misery
it saves the locker room, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know what would have happened in terms of the discontent and malcontents and cancers in the locker room. I think there are a lot of good kids, and.
Well, yeah, but it has to get exhausting, losing and shooting yourself in the foot.
The misery level certainly would have been at 100, and that would have been awful. And certainly, I think as Mel Tucker goes on the road this week, recruiting in the bye, hell of a lot easier when you stop that losing streak, when the narrative has changed. So in that sense, maybe it's a program win.
Preston Zantello next. Number 1, it's a great weekend for football. Michigan State won, and we don't have to watch the Lions. Wins all around.
Yeah, I mean,
I gotta say, Sunday was great.
Yeah, you got Manchester. I mean, and to get Manchester City, Liverpool, and then Bills, Chiefs, that's a hell of a Sunday.
Game was ass for a while though.
Yeah,
especially when you have the over. So
well, if you have the over, it was not a great. I thought it was a good finish though. It was a hell of a second half. Entertaining.
Yeah, sure.
As long as you didn't lose a bet.
I did. Mike Scott next. Number 1, great win for MSU with Thorne and the receivers making some huge catches. But they need to find a way to scheme receivers open here and there like other teams, so rather than relying on making catches in traffic. 2, Illinois is the 3rd best team in the Big Ten right now, and it's not close. 3, the last 60 to 90 minutes of late afternoon and early evening college football on Saturday with Tennessee, Bama, TCU, Oklahoma State, and even MSU, Wisconsin was as entertaining as football as I've seen in a decade.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where, I mean, I love my job, but it's one of those things where you just kind of know you're watching one game.
Yeah, you kind of missed a lot yesterday.
You're missing some things, and that was
usually when you guys complain about that, I'm just like, shut up.
Yeah,
but yesterday, that's.
But you can see why beat writers shouldn't have AP polls. Like if you were covering a team yesterday, you missed all of that. You have no clue what actually happened other than highlights and scores. Illinois, 3rd best team in the Big Ten, and it's not close. Yeah, they may be. I mean, we'll see what they are in terms of them or Michigan, although they may never play. I'm very curious to see. I was very impressed by Illinois. I was impressed by their quarterback playing injured. They got a game this week. Is it Purdue this week? Hold on one second. Illinois schedule. Thanks.
Off.
I can't stop this feeling.
Oh, no, they got a bye in the Nebraska. By Nebraska, Michigan State, yeah. Oh, they do play Michigan. I forgot. They play Michigan November 19th. Holy shit. Is that this year's? I got this right? Like, nobody thought that was the week before Ohio State? How did I miss that? Goodness.
Trap game.
Yeah, that's a hell of an assignment for both those teams. I mean, Illinois doesn't have, I think Illinois has Northwestern the following week, but for Michigan, that's a hell of a back-to-back.
Greeny 777 next. Number 1, if this MSU team had been healthy, they are likely undefeated going into their bye. I had State 8-4 or 9-3 preseason without Slade, Snow, Henderson, and Reed for multiple games, along with multiple defensive injuries. I'd have put the ceiling at 5-7 or 6-6. 2, Jay Johnson has been more of the issue than Hazelton the last 2 games. Quit throwing behind the fucking line of scrimmage on 3rd down. The beard doesn't get fired at the end of the season. And 3, MSU has 2 weeks to continue to get healthy, improve on that 4-3 defensive scheme, and add some wrinkles. If State had lost to Wisconsin, 0% chance they beat Michigan in 2 weeks. Now I'd give them a 10 to 20% chance.
What would you put the percent chance Michigan State can beat Michigan? Having seen yesterday, and then
I would say it's 7%.
Yeah. I don't
I'm
know.
still at 7%.
The one thing I'm curious about in Michigan State's only shot is certainly, I mean, they got some guys back up front in the trenches defensively, but they gave up some yards and some runs to Wisconsin too, and Michigan's offensive line is just
they're going to hammer you
all
day
goodness.
long.
Oh my goodness, right now. Yeah, and they've obviously got a couple good backs and led by Corum there. And so yeah, I would put it south of 10%. The only thing that even gets it in that realm is just the history. Right. There have been times where Michigan State has not looked like they belong on the field of Michigan heading into that game, and it's been really competitive, or Michigan State's pulled an upset. So,
I mean, 7% to win outright. You give me the spread. Let's see what that is. Double digits. How high does it go?
Yeah.
I could see taking the spread maybe. But Ryan Allen next. Number 1, Kenneth Walker will be a top 5 running back the rest of the season and for the next few years. 2, Blake Corum is a Heisman candidate and has less yards than Walker did last year through the same amount of games. Corum, 901. Walker, 997. Imagine Walker with an offensive line last year like Michigan has now.
It's fair to think. I mean, you watch what he's doing with Seattle today, and he had some incredible runs. He's finally healthy, and the NFL is seeing what he is. And you know that there's no doubt that Corum will benefit from the Michigan brand. I'll say this though: at this time last year, I think Walker was legitimately a Heisman candidate headed for New York. I think November is what kept him out of New York as much as anything. So I don't think – I mean, he had 25 yards against Ohio State in a game he was injured. The team kind of fell apart. He did have the good game against Penn State. But if you just go back to October, that game at Rutgers, the game before that at Miami, the win over Michigan, if they had done, at the end of October, he absolutely would have been on the stage in New York and might have been the favorite.
The Youper next. Number 1, as we move into November, I nominate Gobble Gobble to replace Caw Caw, as in Gobble Gobble, congrats on the win. I don't want you fired, but still a lot of concerning miscues.
So everybody's like, Gobble Gobble, instead of Caw Caw, Gobble Gobble. Yeah, I could see that.
2, I'm already worried about the media's Blake Corum for Heisman campaign. The Michigan fan base would reach unprecedented levels of obnoxiousness even if he just makes it to New York. It's a direct insult to Kenneth Walker and all MSU fans.
Yeah, I mean, every year is different in terms of who the other people you're up against are. But if at the end of the day the trajectory is similar and the numbers are less, and there's still other top candidates out there,
and if they go undefeated, they beat Ohio State.
Yeah,
if he runs for 3 touchdowns against Ohio State, right? I mean, then
if they go in
to believe here.
If they go in and pummel Ohio State last week of the year and or push him around up front, and he has a great game now.
He has the stats because he played Hawaii, UConn.
Well, and
whatever,
totally,
right?
I mean, the Heisman Trophy is bullshit, as I said, for a couple reasons. One, it's voted on by people who don't see everything, but it's also not for the best player. I mean, you could argue that Michigan's offensive line should win the Heisman Trophy right now over Blake Corum, and that's just the way it is. I mean, it is the faster we just downgrade that award from being anything meaningful, the better.
What do you mean? Just have it like a regular, like it's just kind of like...
Yeah, it's like a second-place softball trophy at the Lansing State Journal. That's what it is.
All right. Owner with just 1. Love the podcast. First time doing this. Started checking out Kenneth Walker's individual rushing yard bets. I got over 75 yards for plus 170. I think it takes Vegas a few games to get caught up on how good he is. Thanks.
I like this from Owner because I think he's right. Sometimes it takes
today?
Well, it was today, yeah. And so I think the other thing is it will take a couple more weeks. Once they catch on, the value goes away. But there may be a couple more weeks of Kenneth Walker value. You got to
tell Vegas.
Got to read injury. Well, Vegas didn't know about Tennessee or Illinois. Apparently, I don't know what Vegas is doing. We'll have to ask Carrie on Tuesday because I don't know if Vegas is just sleeping. If they're looking to tear down some buildings. And
what does he know? He was in Ann Arbor the whole weekend.
That's a really good
Don't
point.
know about Vegas anymore. He's never there. Dr. Cobra with 1. 42 seconds left. 2 timeouts on the 35-yard line on MSU's final drive. Run, burn a timeout. Run, burn a timeout. Screen pass to the far hash to lose yards. I wanted to type a tirade about the stupidity of it all, but just saying the sequence is a bigger burn.
It was not great. It was not inspiring. And, I do wish that they made Jay Johnson available after games. because Jay Johnson's actually a pretty frank guy when he talks. Like he is the best of all their coaches, well, their primary coaches, right? Mel Tucker and the two coordinators, of those guys in terms of press conference, getting the most out of sort of detailed questions, Jay Johnson's the best at it. And there was a time under D'Antonio where they would make the coordinators available after every single game. Then things started turning nasty around 2018, and they screw this. It would be, because the other problem is I wanted to ask Thorne more about it. I got a little behind on the quick takes, had some technical issues too, and by the time I got down to the interview room, Thorne was just wrapping up.
What kind of tech issues?
I published. It wasn't showing up on the site. Everything has to go so well, has to be so orchestrated well. And there's a question about this later, but everything on those quick takes is like one thing. You know how it is here with technology and me. Like something goes wrong on the show,
right?
You can just tell I'm flustered. I'm off it. I don't
know like exactly what it is, but you know it's a problem.
And I know it's a problem, and I know I don't have any time to solve it, and that becomes an issue. You know, so that's
it's always fun.
Yeah.
Mojo Jojo, number 1, Musk Ox should be Graham's new nickname at home. Cool looking stuff. I'll check them out. 2, Graham, walk us through these shifts and quick takes from start of the Reed's double overtime TD would be fascinating. 3, the no at the end of the caw bit is the best part.
Caw instead of boo boo caw. No. By the way, appreciate the shout out to Muskox. I hope I don't have trouble pronouncing Muskox like I do with Hopcat.
So far, so good.
Yeah, I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
I'm going in slow. But Muskox is a Detroit-based men's apparel company, which is pretty cool. It's here in Michigan. Durable, high-quality flannels built to last a lifetime, and they also value like ethical manufacturing and fiber sourcing, and care about the planet. Which is why $10 for every flannel sold goes towards the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center. And you can learn more at gomuskox.com. That's GOMUSKOX.com. And I'm serious, Jason and I are pretty fired up to put these on. And we'll probably have them on later this week.
Are we going to wear them like together?
We'll be Flannel Brothers, yeah.
Oh, man.
We'll be out and...
Are we really going to wear them at the same time?
Well, maybe in the studio. I mean, how much time do we spend together outside?
No. I was saying the show. Like if someone watches on YouTube or Facebook.
Well, maybe we'll rotate. We'll rotate. So
I'm willing to wear it. I can't wait.
Of course, yeah. I'm pretty
it's like
excited.
the nicest shirt I'm ever going to own. So.
Yeah, no, my wife's already. It's a
Calling
men's
you
apparel.
Musk Ox?
No, but it's a men's apparel company. But she already the first thing I said is I'm getting a flannel, and I'm pretty excited about this new sponsor. And she was like right away wants one, so I may have to make that. And the reality
grow
is,
a beard.
I'll probably
doing stuff outdoors.
I'll probably just be too fat for mine anyway, and she'll get to
just
wear
leave the
it.
buttons kind of laid out at the bottom. Just leave them open, let your gut hang. It's hot.
I don't. That's not hot.
No.
And I think this is going to fit me. I'm pretty pumped about it. To the to the question about what happens with the quick takes. Like overtime games are a nightmare. You try to have a couple written late, but I was updating the stats of the second one, and the whole bit I had didn't really include Keon Coleman a lot. And then all of a sudden he started having a tremendous impact late, so I'm reworking that in the second one. And the third thing on Elijah Collins is already written. You got to have something sort of done. You just have to update stats. But there's no doubt that games where it's decided early are a lot easier on the quick takes. And I've had many moments where you just think of yourself as a complete failure with no shot to get this done. And
how many times did you slam the table?
3 or 4.
Yeah.
And it's always a real, I kind of look within, and I've always got like 6 or 7 coffee cups next to me, and it's just kind of a sad setting, this, I don't know. It all comes together every time. So
Jeff Oswald, sounds like it. Number 1, please God, don't let making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches become another Spartan saying. 2, enough of the running back revolving door BS. Collins needs to be running back 1. And 3, betting on soccer makes it watchable. Thanks for adding to my degenerateness, Graham.
You're welcome. It does help. If you need
the
something.
only way.
Nah, I don't need it. But
not for you, but I'm saying I can say that about college football. I wouldn't have watched some of those games yesterday without gambling. I have no problem admitting that.
It does.
Some today, too. I mean, I love NFL football Sundays, but if there was no fantasy football or gambling, I don't know.
And, if you're ever, just looking for something to do late on a Sunday night, especially if you've lost, you're in trouble on the with the ponies gambling-wise, you can just sit back in your muskox flannel and pop in Skyman Edible and then put a little money on the Liga MX.
Never gonna financially recover.
And because you bet a Mexican soccer game late on the Firekeepers iCasino and Sportsbook app, it's pretty exhilarating.
Ryan Schultz next. Number one, I thought an MSU win would preserve some of my faith in the coaching staff. Instead, I have even less than I did going into the game. This product simply does not look this way if the kids are well coached. 2, fuck Man City. Gambling related. 3, and fuck me for cashing out of 2 parlays that had Utah money line when it didn't look like they had a chance of stopping USC early. And bonus, grocery shopping hungry is ass. I'm seriously tempted to look for some sushi at Meijer right now. This is where Graham gets it right.
And, of course, this is our Hopcat hot take of the day. Who would have figured? Hopcat, the best damn beer bar. Of course, world-famous Cosmic Fries, mouth-watering, award-winning burgers. And one of the things I love that they do so well is carefully curated local beer. And so their partners are the partners that are in your community, wherever you may be, whether it's East Lansing, whether it's Grand Rapids, Ann Arbor, Kalamazoo, Indianapolis, and Peyton Thorne. We've been saying however he plays, the burger is fantastic. Played well this week. Maybe you go to Hopcat and celebrate with a Peyton Thorne burger. 2 smashed patties with American cheese, bacon, and sunny side egg up, served on a pretzel bun with, of course, the Cosmic Fries. You can go to hopcat.com to check out where the nearest Hopcat is to you. And our friend Ryan, of course, will get a $20 gift card to Hopcat for having the Hopcat hot take of the day.
This is where Graham gets it right. So everything else you say is wrong.
Well,
except for grocery shopping and eating like a weirdo.
That's fair. And Ryan calls me out on bad takes sometimes. I'm with you. Look, the sushi, you can argue whether it's the hygiene of it, whether eating sushi while you push a cart and grocery shop and pull things off a shelf is hygienic, but it is absolutely
if you use
effective.
Chopsticks, I think it would be different.
Or a fork. Chopsticks are hard while you're pushing a cart. Like, you got to be pretty damn good. That would be impressive.
That would be so bad. Please, someone, if you see Graham eating that, take a picture.
The Man City thing was rough. And did you win your parlay this week, by the way?
I don't think at the parlay that I gave out, I kind of tweaked it and did a different parlay.
Interesting.
Free bet, but yeah.
Wait a sec. You tweaked the one you gave out and didn't tell people?
No. I did the one that I gave out, but I tweaked another parlay that I had that for games that I liked. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know. It is interesting, though, that, I think Ryan shares everybody's feeling on this, or at least everybody we've had so far. Just the idea that, somehow this win didn't increase the faith in the coaching staff. I think there are elements of it. You have to say what they did defensively was an adjustment. And the type of leadership that's in the program and the getting guys who have lost 4 straight to play with resolve. And there are some things that they deserve credit for, but there's some other things that weren't ideal.
Singus X2 next. Number 1, Xavier Henderson was the difference. 2, MSU needs to pass to run and then run to pass. They aren't strong enough to impose a running attack without first establishing the pass. It's hot in here. Jesus.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, they early on, it was just sort of this run the ball up the middle twice stuff, and I'm a big proponent of forced balance. But sometimes, that looked straight out of the Dave Warner playbook, man. That was early on. It was not, and then Wisconsin has that draw. It looked like things were going to get ugly in a hurry, and so I do give them a lot of credit for it not going that way.
Plus size softball dad. Number 1, I enjoy both of Graham's podcasts, but all the talk of transfers and offensive line woes with Solari almost ended my sobriety. 2, nothing will top the 2012 Iowa game in terms of ugliness, but this was close. And 3, but this season I'll take an ugly win. Maybe we can win 5 games.
Yeah, I don't know if people remember that 2012 Iowa game. It was my first year covering Michigan State, and I think it was lost in overtime, like 19-17, something like that. And it was up there. And they there were games where they scored less that didn't look that ugly. It was absolutely brutal. Because just think of who Iowa is. Iowa is this year. Everything's ugly that Iowa does.
Solari almost ended his sobriety, though. Jesus, man.
Yeah.
I need to watch those more
I don't
often.
even, like, I zone out. I black out sometimes when Solari's talking. Like, I don't even remember that.
I know the feeling. Professor, next. Number 1, TV timeouts are out of control. There has to be a smarter way to sell advertising. 2, I've heard my first live caw at the stadium yesterday. Whoever it was around section 122, I respect you. Could have been Graham Couch in the press box. 3, the MSU O-line will be subpar until 2024.
I love the idea of a caw. Yeah.
Yeah, but people were yelling it out.
That's fantastic.
And they're going to have shirts.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna catch on. We just got to explain to people what's happening.
No, but that's not the point, though. It's kind of like an inside thing for Couch of the Rube.
That's true.
Listeners.
So these are really good from Professor. TV timeouts are out of control, and there is a smarter way to sell advertising. I don't get. Well, you just do, like, for example, if you say this quarter is with limited commercial breaks presented by, Muskox. Like, all of a sudden people are like, oh, I want that. I appreciate that, because I would appreciate that. Or
how much would they have to charge?
Well, that's a question. Or you can do the thing where you bring the thing around the screen for a little bit, where the screen gets slightly smaller and you have the thing around the edge. You could have Hopcat around the edge. And I'm just saying, like, there's got to be more creative way to integrate the advertising without quite so many commercials, because I do think overall, if people aren't paying attention to it anyway, then how effective is it? I'm with you on the offensive line until 2024. I think next year's going to be a rough year.
Andrew Gauthier next. Number 1, I'd rather hook an electrode up to my left testicle than watch another political ad. 2, MSU's defense looks like a totally different unit. Love the 4-3 with Winman and Brule. Brule? Is it Brule or Brule?
I think it's Brule.
Brule has backers. Why the hell weren't they doing this all year? And 3, if Elijah Collins and Jalen Berger are healthy, they should be the only running backs getting carries.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question. And I understand that what they did with Winman worked very well in the first 2 games, so there was a sense that maybe they'd struck gold with it. And so it takes a couple games then to realize a change needs to be made. So, but I would think by Maryland, you should have been trying some other things. And I know Maryland, one of the things that was bizarre, even in the post game, is, Winman was talking about they went to this 4-3 because they knew that Wisconsin is a run first, establish the run type team. The 5 defensive back thing wasn't working against the pass anyway. Go with this. This is a better deal for these guys, and they've simplified it. And now, obviously, with Michigan and Illinois and Rutgers up next, these are all teams that are run centric as well. So it fits. But I think if they had done it for the Maryland game, that would have been by October 1st, where it's like, wait a second, they need to really. And by the way, they did some things at the Maryland game that were different. They were trying some stuff. But this, and we'll see what he looks like next week, against Michigan. Like, I want to see, because he looked like a guy who could be a pro linebacker. He looked like a guy who's just instinctual, is a good leader, he's a playmaker, and at that position, is perfect for him. And I just, you got to put guys in the best place, the best chance they have to succeed. And I don't know why they didn't see that earlier. And he even talked about, that's his position. He said, it was good to be home again. It seems like it, and they said, well, some guys were healthy at defensive end, which allowed it to happen. You look at their defensive end roster and 2 deep, it doesn't seem like that's really the case. To me, that's the one puzzling thing that I think they were a little late on. To their credit, they did it, and maybe having Xavier Henderson really helped allow them to do it in other ways as well.
Kurt Wisniewski next. Number 1, the next 2 weeks are going to be very calm and focused on the AAC. 2, MSU defensive adjustments have rescued their season. And 3, offense. MSU's zone blocking scheme helps disguise offensive line deficiency, but creates confusion for the defense and helps the run game.
I thought the offensive line was, and again, I think Wisconsin is down defensively. You can just see it. They're not quite as. That's been a really good defense in certain years. You go back to what happened in 2019 when they just creamed Michigan State in Madison. That defense looked very different than the one that Michigan State just faced. I'm very curious to see what the line does against a better defensive line against Michigan, because all the stuff that sort of worked and the playmakers they discovered, and maybe a guy like Keon Coleman is finding his place a little bit, and certainly Malik Carr getting involved I think was a big deal, and all that stuff is important. But if they can't protect to an adequate amount, it's going to be hard to do a whole lot of that stuff, all the Jaden Reed success and everything, and that, we'll see where that goes.
JD next. Number 1, having Xavier Henderson and Jacob Slade back made a huge difference. Go figure. 2, Thorne proved he's still that dude. Hazelton proved he maybe can still be that dude. 3, season-defining victory. 6-6 or 7-5 is reachable.
Heck, the over 7.5 isn't technically gone yet. Yeah, it's gone, but
and it's gone.
7-5 is not really reachable to me because I don't see. I mean, you're talking about beating 2 of Michigan, Illinois, and Penn State on the road. Just doesn't seem likely. And Penn State certainly looks vulnerable, looks physically. I think the best news for Michigan State playing Penn State is against Michigan, Penn State did not look like a team that's physically overwhelming in the trenches. They got bullied. And while that may happen to Michigan State against Michigan, it's probably less likely to happen against Penn State, which gives that game some intrigue and gives Michigan State an opportunity.
Molon Lobby Spartan. Number 1, Jaden Reed bailed Mel Tucker out. Game management was terrible to end regulation. 2, I'll continue to beat this dead horse. Throw the ball before 3rd down. Use your weapons. And 3, Graham Mertz's ass. I needed 195 yards passing to complete my parlay. Just wow.
It's amazing how that's like Mullen Lobby Spartan will have spite for Graham Mertz for the rest of time because that's
you
the
have
way,
to.
Yeah, that's the way
you should
works.
have spite on yourself for thinking Graham Mertz could throw 195
well,
yards.
But look at Michigan State's pass defense. I mean,
I'm not saying it was a bad bet.
Yeah,
it's just like I'm glad it didn't happen. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, for sure.
That would have been depressing. Ron Kixiotti. Number 1, I hate admitting it, but Michigan is a good football team. 2, they run the ball and stop the run better than most teams in the country. However, I'd much rather face that than a team that can throw like Ohio State. And 3, if Thorne can match his stat line from Wisconsin, MSU stuns Michigan.
So there are a couple here. These are good from Ron. While his final point has some merit, it is mostly because if Thorne is able to match his stat line, and it's still a hot take because obviously Michigan State's defense would have to hold up, but if he's able to match his stat line from Wisconsin, that means that some things are happening up front that are good. That means Michigan State's probably running the ball with some effectiveness here and there, at least, and that means playmakers are making play. Like there's no doubt if Thorne were able to match his stat line from the Wisconsin game, Michigan State has a chance to at least be competitive in that game. The question is whether that defense just gets mauled but you'd rather, he's right in this, you'd rather face that than Ohio State. You'd rather the slow death, I guess, than the quick strike death, right?
Do you think Michigan's a good football team?
Yeah, I think they're a phenomenal.
Really good team?
I think they're very, and the thing about it is,
or is it Penn State's just overrated ass?
Well, I think
I'm not trying to take anything away from Michigan. It's just hard. I just don't know if we got a good sample size from that Penn State game. Utter dominance from Michigan. Congrats. I just don't know if I'm still believing they're a good football team yet.
Yeah, and their schedule's so backloaded, and they don't play. Obviously, that Illinois-Ohio State stretch at the end is something. It's a good question because when you look at what Penn State did against Northwestern, I know the weather was really awful. They had the remnants of the hurricane in that last game they played and all that stuff, but Northwestern's been killed by everybody. Northwestern got beat 42-7 by Wisconsin, and that was 17-7 against Penn State. So, Michigan got now? They got Michigan State next. So I guess we'll at least know how those two teams stack up.
Craig Robinson next. Number 1, thought I was done with the same old Spartans feeling, but it was triggered during this game. 2, MSU will hang with Michigan in 2 weeks, but have too many deficiencies to win. And 3, going with the same old Spartans theme, MSU will snag either the Illinois or Penn State game, but won't become bowl eligible.
Yeah, so in the same old Spartans mantra, or going with that theme, would be to beat Illinois and then lose at home to Rutgers, right? That's the old style of Michigan State football from yesteryear. And D'Antonio really shook. I mean, that was part of what made his tenure so successful for a long time, is they didn't lose the games they weren't supposed to lose. I do understand why that was triggered a little bit, though. It felt like yesterday there were just a lot of self-inflicted stuff that you've seen in throughout time, and if you're of a certain age, you've absolutely lived it before.
Jack Hogla next. Number 1, it is now the 17th inning. SOS. I'm now without food, beer, and shelter. Ready to get on with my day. Please, someone end it. Am I mad about spending my whole Saturday on the couch? No. Am I ready to do something else? Yes. And 2, wow, MSU won.
And apparently the baseball game was played without a runner on second in the extra innings. So that's big.
Breaking news to Graham today.
That was huge. I didn't know that rule existed. I clearly didn't watch that.
And it was
game,
1-0 too.
Yeah. No, I was like, wow, that's – I mean, because I even watched the highlights. I didn't realize when the thing was ending. But, yeah. It's,
you had 18 innings to look up and go, man, there's not a runner on second?
Well, I've watched a fair bit of baseball, and I've had
playoffs.
Had some Skyman in me here and there, but in the playoffs here.
Mm-hmm.
But like a Friday night, I covered Michigan State hockey and volleyball like on the same night, and was coming back and writing a couple things there. And that was a Padres Dodgers thing. I had some stuff. I love the West Coast stuff because you get to watch this stuff real late. But I haven't noted that. I haven't seen an extra inning postseason game. I didn't know that rule was not in play.
All right. Mother Tucker next. Number 1, as long as Michigan is up, we need to become comfortable with there being a seat saved for one of their players every year for the Heisman. We all see that it's a racket. 2, don't let the W take away from some horrid game management from Tuck. And 3, Jaden Reed should have went pro.
I was thinking about that a couple weeks ago and thought he probably should have, but the NFL doesn't look at stats as much as they look at who the player is. And if Jaden Reed, for 6 games to end this season, including Saturday, is the player he was on Saturday.
But he could have wowed at the combine.
He could have. There were things that the pros wanted him to do in terms of just being really detailed in routes and really, if he shows them what he needed to do and he has a great finish to this season, it might have improved his stock or at least helped him, stick. The thing is, to some extent, it helps to be drafted high, and you see it. But there are lots of fourth-round receivers who are gone pretty quickly, second-round receivers. N'Keal Harry was a first-round receiver, gone real quickly. And then you see Amaron St.
Bernard
for the Lions. Thanks, asshole. And who I loved right away is a 4th-round pick, and he's really good. You see Connor Hayward today, who was a late round guy, 7th round, right? And he has a huge play for the Steelers and their win over you see what's happening. There are a number of guys who you just got to be good enough, and you got to have them be invested in you enough. So you'd rather be a draft pick, but the jury's out on that. Let's see how he finishes the year.
K is next. Number 1, Xavier Henderson is more than just a leader. He's the spirit of the defense. The trash talking to Braylon Allen after he stuffed him at the goal line pushed the defense to another level. 2, Michigan doesn't throw the deep ball as well at all. Their success rests on McCarthy's shoulder. He will need multiple bombs to beat the Spartans in 2 weeks. And 3, SEC defense is really weak this year, top to bottom. The national champion lives in the Big Ten and a bout with Clemson in the national championship game.
Clemson actually got a chance. Like I thought Clemson's run was done, and they're all of a sudden looking really, really good again. McCarthy will make a mistake still. He's still a young quarterback. He's got a lot of talent. They do not have guys who scare you on the edge, like Ohio State, obviously. The question is, can Michigan State hold up front? And then the other thing is, what do you think the minimum amount of points that Michigan's going to score in that game is?
The minimum?
Yeah.
34.
Yeah. I'm with you. Mid-30s. Like I can't see less than 35.
Yeah.
And so the question really for me is, can Michigan State make it so that's about all it is and it's not 50 or something? And then on the other side, can Michigan State have a game where, like in regulation against Wisconsin, Michigan State had 21. So how does Michigan State's and Michigan State's offense actually played pretty well at times? How do you get to the point where you're in the mid-30s against a Michigan defense that's better than that? And that's really where I think you've got. I mean, that's where the issues. Well, there are lots of issues, but that's where the issues probably begin.
Jarrett next. Number 1, this Wisconsin game proves MSU is as bad as advertised, but also had the potential to be an 8-4, 9-3 team because of injuries and bad coaching adjustments. 2, Illinois would beat Michigan if they play. And 3, either MSU beats Michigan or loses by more than 2 touchdowns.
So nothing close with the defeat. Illinois does play Michigan, apparently. I just found out that today, along with the no runner on second in the postseason. Lots
That's
of
great
things,
news.
Lots of things. And look, Michigan should have to play that crossover. I think that's karma. At the beginning of the year, Michigan having Illinois as a crossover game probably was like, well, that's kind of weak. But when you play the schedule you did, the 3 non-conference opponents, the 8 home games, which is shameful, and is beneath this team. That's what's stupid. Is like, this is a really good Michigan team. They didn't need this buffoonery. And so I'm glad they have to really prove it at the end, because I think they have a chance to. I mean, they're a really good team. But
this buffoonery. Rich Searing next. Number 1, a win is a win, and it feels good, but expectations for the season aren't much different. I still don't see bowl eligibility. 2, still concerned about clock management and coaching decisions. And 3, recruit, and check back with me at the end of 2025.
So let me ask you, Jason, how many people do you think have that mentality and that patience? Like, as long as you have some, I mean, you can't have complete incompetence. You can't have a program that completely falls apart, but basically are willing to watch the recruiting classes and give Tucker the time.
But you have no choice, though. Like,
right,
he's 1 and
true.
2. He's a rational thinking Spartan fan.
Yeah,
I have no problem with that. But saying that you have to, because you have to wait till 2025.
I do think you do need to have, like, while yesterday's game did not exude confidence in Tucker, it also, though, was a really good time for a lot of MSU fans. Like, I know people were there. It was homecoming, and it was
Free Ubers.
It was a good atmosphere for a team that had lost 4 straight, and people had a good time. They saw them win. It was an exhilarating finish, and you leave there with an overall positive feeling, even if there's some concerns. You got to have enough of those games along the way where people, it's not you're not dreading going to the stadium. Like, and that next year is going to be really interesting, because Xavier Henderson's probably not going to be back. Although if I were Michigan State, Xavier Henderson could come back next year if he only plays in 2 more games, because you play in 4. Like, he could get a redshirt year, so you get the COVID year. He could get a medical redshirt year if he only played in 2 more games, because he would have played in 4. So you play him against Michigan and Illinois, and if things are going bad, I'm just kidding. Back. He wants to leave, but there would be if somebody out there wanted to do, if Muscox wanted to do a really good NIL deal to help Michigan State's football program, not an awful play to throw enough at
flannel for everyone.
Yeah, why not? Take it from the tailgate. You could have commercials with Xavier Henderson at tailgates and all that stuff wearing flannel, nice and comfy.
Alex James next. Number 1, MSU football is best when it has a chip on its shoulder. Coming off an 11-2 preseason top 15, they were too cocky and lost their compass for a while. 2, Saban's stranglehold on college football is loosening and fast. And 3, the only way to reduce head injuries is to play without helmets.
He's not wrong on the helmets thing. I mean, you have head problems and head trauma in rugby and stuff, but people don't use their head as a spear when you don't have a helmet.
How long would it take for people to get used to playing without helmets?
I
think it would take me a full season to.
Yeah, and people wouldn't enjoy it. Just when people wouldn't enjoy it, it's a different sport. Like, if you watch rugby, those guys are intimidating as hell, but they're, it's just different. I wouldn't.
Saban stranglehold, loss at Tennessee. I mean, is it the Bama dynasty over? I don't think so.
I don't think so either, because we thought it with Clemson last year, maybe, and sometimes you can have it.
Dabo, and he's kind of goofy. Saban, he's just going to reload.
Yeah, well, look at the recruiting classes. If the recruiting classes were to start to dip, now I do think it is not forever. I mean, the man is in his 70s, and they weren't very good before him. There's no guarantee they get to be great.
But he just signed an 8-year extension.
We'll see if he finishes that. I mean, you can,
Anthony Armour next. Number one, happy MSU got the W, but the end of regulation was inexcusable. I still can't believe how that was handled. And 2, Xavier Henderson has that dog in him. What a warrior. And 3, imagine not liking college football after a day like yesterday. Hashtag caw-caw.
That's the sort of thing I would tweet. Imagine not liking this. You know, if you don't like this, there's something wrong with
I
you.
thought about that tweet yesterday, and I was like, how can you not like sports? And I was like, don't send that out.
Yeah, because
I don't understand how you don't like sports.
I've talked about this with my wife, because my wife has zero interest in any of this stuff.
I can't imagine that.
No, and I think it's good for mental health to like sports, because even in your most down state, if you're kind of excited about your team next year,
you have something to look forward to like during the week. Like, Thursday we play, blah, blah, blah. Like, not having that in my life, like, what the fuck would I be doing?
Yeah, no, I mean,
reading a book?
Talking with people?
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
No, I mean, that's just...
like sitting on a couch and not talking to anyone for 9 hours. It's the best. Tyler, next. Number 1, it felt like the MSU crowd really needed a competitive game, and they carried through with the team. 2, MSU was opportunistic a la last season, except the false start flags. And 3, I think that Utah 2-point conversion fucked the Rubes parlay. Well, that was one part that got fucked. And then Kansas... plus 9.5, they lost by 10.
Yeah, I bought the half point and pushed.
Kansas, their defense is terrible.
That was an
See, and we talk about losing the bet but learning something.
Yes,
that's going to stay in my brain now.
You're not going to bet Kansas, right? No, you're done with them. Yeah, no,
I'm going to lose more money when thinking they're D's ass, and then
I do think it did help yesterday that it was homecoming and there was a massive crowd, because it was 70,000. And
was it 70,000 strong? Or 70,000.
70,000, like Boston strong. Just by the way, I watched that the other day. I watched the end of maybe Dodgers Padres, and then I watched the post game show, which Big Papi is on. And then there was this whole documentary on Big Papi. It was really, really interesting. I had it in the background as I was working, like 1 a.m. The only thing that pissed me off, obviously, they showed Torrey Hunter slamming into the wall in 2013 at Fenway, in that Little League park that is Fenway. But, they showed all the stuff with and how he's become just this massive hero, this icon, this is a fucking city, all that stuff. That was, just a great, I love that
Did
part.
you tell that just so you could do the David Ortiz impression?
Yeah, that was my thing.
Is that the only thing you can do out of Ortiz? Or
I'm not going to just sit here and talk in a Dominican accent. Like
that's not a Dominican accent. That's
this is a fucking city.
BPA next. Number 1, the clock management at the end of regulation should deeply worry us all. Very common end of game situation, and it was pure panic and errors from coaches. 2, MSU waking up made Michigan a bit more interesting. And 3, Sparty's playing spoiler in 2 weeks and has nothing to lose. But it's lose-lose for Michigan. Win, and they should have won anyway. Lose, and it's possibly the worst loss to MSU in, forever. All the pressure on Michigan.
So there is, this is where all the history against Michigan in the last, decade and a half helps, because there isn't, and even with Mel Tucker having won the first 2, Michigan State's not that good this year. Everybody knows that. It's not like people are expecting Michigan State to win. And so there is pressure on Michigan. I don't know that, I think Michigan's pretty motivated to get this done. I don't think this isn't like, there's pressure on Michigan. That's a real negative here. But I do think from a Michigan State standpoint, there's a little bit of house money. Now, that said, there is a level of dignity you want to keep, and you don't want the 70-7 game. You don't want the game where it's just so epic that it looks like your program's so far away from that one that, whatever you've done recently, you've got a lot of work to do. You want a game that's competitive for a while at the absolute.
But what about the number 1? The clock management should deeply worry us all. I kind of agree with that one. It gave me, kind of John L. Smith vibes, the way that ended.
So, yeah, and I want to see it, and this is where you'll probably get a chance in the next couple of years before it really, really matters, because I don't think they're going to be good enough to be playing for anything that's overly significant. But let's see it again. Let's see if it's a problem, if it becomes a thing. Everybody can have a day where they sort of say, that didn't really work, or this went wrong, and we don't even know the full extent. Was something miscommunicated somewhere, or they didn't pick something up, or what? That's an incredibly fair spin zone, to be honest with you. We're going to take a really quick break. We come back. We'll get into more of your hot takes. Couch in the Roo, presented by Skymint Premium Cannabis, and our Sunday night show now presented by Muskox Quality Flannels.
Hopcat exists at the intersection of great beer and delicious food, complemented by music, art, community, and comfort. Home to a best-in-class beer experience served by craft beer experts. Guests can expect a casual, inviting local gathering place with some of the best damn burgers and fries you'll find in Michigan. Hopcat is proud to be an official sponsor of Peyton Thorne. Show your Spartan pride by ordering the iconic Peyton Thorne burger, created by the man himself. There is no better place to watch any Michigan State game other than the 50-yard line at Spartan Stadium. Stop by any of our locations: East Lansing, Detroit, Grand Rapids, Ann Arbor, Kalamazoo, and Holland. To plan your next trip to Hopcat, visit hopcat.com. Firekeepers Online Casino and Sportsbook is the site to play. Get your Vegas on right now from your phone, tablet, or laptop. All the hottest slots and tables, plus sports betting featuring in-game wagering. Download the app at firekeeperscasino.com. Go with the name you know. Firekeepers. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and located in Michigan. Gambling problem? Call the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-270-7117. Wherever you are on your cannabis journey, let Sky Mint Premium Cannabis be your guide, your friend, and your place. Whether you're curious about cannabis or a seasoned connoisseur, Sky Mint's knowledgeable staff will help you with a vast selection of products to choose from to fit your needs. Sky Mint believes access to the best cannabis helps people do good and feel good, so they grow it right here in Michigan, giving you high-quality, locally grown cannabis at highly accessible prices. Visit skymint.com for special offers and location information throughout Michigan, and use the promo code CouchAndRube20 for 20% off your first visit. Sky Mint Cannabis. You'll love this place. Come enjoy irresistible, award-winning, handcrafted donuts and locally roasted coffee at Groovy Donuts. Surprise your family or coworkers with special holiday designs and flavors, or put the perfect finishing touch on an event with a custom order. Birthdays, weddings, gender reveals, our friends at Groovy Donuts are your answer. Experience the Groovy Donuts difference for yourself on Lake Lansing Road in East Lansing or in Williamston. Get more information or place an order at groovydonuts.com.
Find Couch and the Rube podcasts on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, CastBox, and the Rube's favorite podcast addict.
Couch and the Rube, presented by Skymint Premium Cannabis, inspiring us all to feel better, look better, and just be better every damn day of your life. Go to skymint.com for location information and daily specials. And Skymint delivers. If you go to Skymint, most communities in Michigan, they now deliver. You can have your weed delivered right to your door. And our Sunday night show, brought to you by our friends at Muscat's and Quality Flannels. Jason and I are excited to partner with them. While we were away, I noticed a tweet from our friend Eric Uzanik, a.k.a. the Gluten Weasel, who said of the professor's point that he had heard the word caw being yelled from the Spartan Stadium. He says, holy shit, I was in section 124, which isn't that far away from this, and at a few moments I did caw. It was brought. So, yeah, maybe we got something going there.
Maybe we got something going there. Ryan Rockwell, number one, the coaching is more to blame than lack of talent for MSU's shortcomings this season. Lack of discipline, taking too long to adjust the scheme to your players, poor game management, etc. 2, bring back the I formation and run the damn ball with Collins. And 3, the Crow song is still better than that Girls 5 Eva song. Hashtag caw caw. Caw.
I think that Girls 5 Eva song's underrated. Pretty damn good.
That is dog shit.
Was also
what are you talking about?
Was very happy to see
That's one of your worst takes.
Michigan State marching band out there with Les Mis and some other Broadway stuff.
Thanks for that. Those notifications flying in.
You're welcome.
Attaching me to that.
So the idea that the coaching is more to blame than lack of talent for MSU's shortcomings this season. I don't. I think it's all encompassing. I think certainly the defensive scheme did not for the first 6 weeks fit the personnel they had, but the personnel was a problem and remains, I think, an issue to some degree. I think, and then look, these are hot takes, so
but there should be red flags raised at some of this stuff, though. I don't think it should be sky is falling, fire Mel Tucker's, that blah blah blah. But it is kind of concerning right now.
No, but I do think that there's to say that coaching is more to blame than lack of talent. I think the lack of talent still to me stands out in certain areas, especially up front.
Right. Derek Spartan. Number 1, if MSU lost, Tucker should have lost his job. 2, MSU should Cade Thorne.
What? Like Cade McNamara, get rid of Thorne next year.
MSU should Cade Thorne next year. Okay.
I'm trying to use Cade as a verb.
All right. 3, that game was 2012 Minnesota.
So yeah, and there's the program game, 2012 Minnesota, and we'll see where it leads to. But it certainly was promising in terms of the fight and the playmakers showing up, and you know, there are just some promising things that developed. Some things that weren't as promising. I thought Thorne played pretty well, and I know some people disagree with this, but and certainly his connection with Reed is important, but his ability to, and I'm not saying that Noah Kim wouldn't be savvy enough to do this or understand the offense well enough to do it, but the idea that they understood the look they were getting in overtime was different than anything they'd seen. The play they had wasn't the play that would best take advantage of that, and that they just went one-on-one for that play. I think that's important stuff, and that was a really on-point throw too. I mean, I don't know. I thought he was, he's not Tom Brady, but he's a college quarterback in the Big Ten. Like I don't, and again, if I'm not saying Noah Kim won't be better than him in time, but there was nothing in this game to me that said he should lose his job. And although I do like these are hot takes, and if MSU lost, Tucker should have lost his job is definitely a hot one.
Chris Eastlick next. Number 1, I've been giving the coaches more of a leash than most, but that end of the fourth quarter might be one of the worst examples of clock management I've ever seen. Why did we not make Wisconsin call their timeouts? 2, still think Mel is great long-term, but we may need more of an emphasis on quality control, which is surprising for a coach from Saban tree. 3, we may not beat Michigan, though I think we can if we play well, but that win helps with confidence more than anything and eases a burden on players and coaches. I think we can hang with the rest of our schedule.
Yeah, I think the Illinois game will be interesting too, because I think Illinois is, while a better team than Michigan State, and is playing really well. In terms of their development, they do have a lot of transfers, but there's a lot of Lovie Smith guys in that program, and maybe Lovie was recruiting okay at the end, but I don't know that should be a game where you get overwhelmed, although the defense seems to be playing well, and I think there's a lot of good coaches on that staff. The Saban thing is interesting, because one of the things that is, Saban thought Mel Tucker was a guy that was worth taking a look at. Like, I think Saban respects Mel Tucker as a coach, thought he would be good in this role, and I don't he cares about Michigan State enough. I don't think he recommends that if he doesn't think Mel Tucker would be a good fit as a head coach at Michigan State.
Matt Venny next. Number 1, the swing pass to the running back is becoming the next short side jet sweep. 2, the run pass punt play calling by Jay Johnson is going to give me an aneurysm. And 3, the only legitimate concern fans should have about Tucker is poor game management in key situations. The end of regulation in this game was just like Rutgers last year, but with AIDS.
So, that's
a lot worse if you have AIDS.
Way worse.
That situation has AIDS, yeah.
Way worse. The swing pass of the running back becoming the next short side jet sweep. Every coach has the play that drives fans nuts. It's like, that's really that again.
You think every fan base has that?
I think they probably do. Maybe there's somebody who doesn't. Like
Clemson, do you think does Clemson fan have a play?
I bet even
multiple touchdowns.
If the Los Angeles Rams had a fan, I think that fan would be frustrated with even Sean McVay, as smart as he is, with some of the really Cooper Kupp underneath again. That's what we're doing. I would tell
them to shut the hell up. He just won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, he's pretty good.
Tony and the Ducks next. Number 1, if you are booing Peyton Thorne, you're dumb as fuck. He's far from the problem. 2, about time we switched to the 4-3 defense. And 3, just beat Michigan.
It certainly would solve a lot. Think about it. Let's put this out there to let people dream what that would do. First of all, people would be in love with Mel Tucker. They wouldn't care about penalties or anything else. To be 3-0, that'd be 11 wins in 15 years, 3-0 for Mel Tucker. Michigan State would be 4-4, and you talk about the opportunity to get to a bowl game. Then it becomes very realistic. You wouldn't even have to beat Illinois or Penn State on the road to do it. Michigan's season would be in I don't want to say in shambles, because they would still have an opportunity to get to the playoff, I think, if they won out. but it would wreck that program, and it would put tremendous pressure on Harbaugh to have a good performance against Ohio State at the end of the year. I think to lose both of the rivals. There's a lot of things Michigan State could do and would get out of winning that game. There is a lot to gain. So it's not just I said house money earlier. It's house money in some ways that there's not a lot of pressure, but there is a great opportunity.
Room temperature takes next. Number 1, is this the second biggest program win under Tucker behind Penn State last year? 2, Coleman, Reed, and Henderson are the only players on the team who have that dog in them. And 3, sadly, beating Michigan and going 6-6 would be a more successful season than going 9-3 with a loss to Michigan.
Some people feel that way. Do you feel that way?
No, I'd rather go 9-3.
Yeah, I think that's
Tucker 2-1 against Harbaugh.
I think when you get down to 8-4, there's a conversation. 7-5 to 6-6, certainly they're not all the same. Yeah. But 9-3 is because 9-3 is a level of program that's on the edge of that New Year's Six bowl. It's in the top 15, 16, like it's a New Year's Day bowl. Certainly,
and you won 11 and then 9, so there was a little hiccup, and so you have more hope for the next season.
Yeah. No, I think
I'd take 9-3 all day.
I think if you bring it up to 7-5 as the alternative, or you bring it down to 8-4 on the other side, there's conversations. But I think that's too much. You talk about the dog in them. I think Winman's got a lot. I mean, he's like, I would be if I was carrying a football, I would be scared of that guy trying to strip it from me because he is great at getting it out.
We need video of that.
Should we do that?
Hand you a football and
then
watch Winman come at you. You have to hold on to it for $1,000.
I wouldn't for $1,000 because it would hurt, and $1,000's not enough.
He can't hurt you. He can't punch you in the face.
Well,
no, I'm saying if he has to use a football kind of move, he's not going to be able to elbow
Right,
you.
I see.
Yeah. We got to make it fun for everyone.
Yeah. We
don't want you to die.
Putting full pads, go out there, just go running through a hole. Yes. Jacoby Winmont running at
punts.
42-year-old.
Do you think you could catch a punt in pads?
Yeah.
With players coming at you?
Well, are they going to hit me or are they just coming at me?
You can carry. Well, they're going to try to get the ball out of your hands.
Can I just fair catch it?
You can.
Yeah, if I could fair catch it.
All right.
I think I got Division I hands. I got Division IV speed, but Division I hands.
Ken Chu next. Number 1, MSU football must be way more talented when we think if they can fuck up the execution that much and still win. 2, the change to the 4-3 defense and the use of Carr and Barker at tight end need to be permanent. And 3, break out the Rocky to Ricky White game plan.
It is amazing to think 2 years ago, Rocky Lombardi and Ricky White were the stars of that game.
Was that 2 years ago?
Yeah, neither one. Yeah, 2020 was a long year.
Just Lombardi throwing up those balloons. I missed that.
It was, but they were on point, right?
Right.
And Michigan had no answer.
It floated
there's no question. I do think the tight end thing for sure. They've gotten away from it too much. Malik
Carr's huge.
Yeah, and you watch him rumble that speed. He ran out of like 3 different tackles.
But why wouldn't you try to get that guy the ball? I know Andrew Gauthier was saying that in a lot of his takes, but I'm saying he's right. Guy's a monster.
You try to read tea leaves on guys, and I asked about Carr. We talked to Carr yesterday. And then I can't remember who I asked about Carr. But the clear point was his blocking is improving. You sometimes somebody says something that's not meant to be an insult or explain why a guy's not playing, and you go, aha. He's not their best blocking tight end.
Who gives a shit?
Well,
don't block then. Just throw him the ball.
If you don't have a great offensive line and you throw a tight end out there who doesn't block that well.
I'm not saying he's got to play 75% of the snaps, but you should get that guy involved somehow.
No doubt.
Who's that huge?
Yep.
Bo McJunkins. Number 1, Jay Johnson is pissing me off more than Scottie lately. That first drive was a fireable offense. Not really, but brutal. 2, for every second and long run Jay Johnson runs, he should be subjected to 24 hours of Tony D NBA draft grade analysis.
Oh my God, we won the lottery!
3, since Solari asked where Mel's offensive line recruits are, he should have to list all of the freshman linemen that are starting around the country. That's not the norm, Chris. Baldwin played because Horst was hurt.
Yeah, and I know Horst is frustrating people, and it's like, at what point? They clearly, at a certain point, you make a move and don't have Horst out there if he's just committing penalty after penalty. But ultimately, you're trying to win the game, too. And if you think the drop-off behind him is significant,
It must be.
You have to deal with it. And the other thing, and I'll put this out there, and we don't know exactly where some of these freshmen are. I will be very interested to watch what happens beginning at Illinois and certainly beginning at home against Rutgers. But when there are 4 games left and you're no longer burning a red shirt on an offensive lineman, that will be telling. You're not going to play a true freshman right now. You just don't do it. Because ultimately, if you're trying to build a program that can have an offensive line like we're seeing at Michigan or compete with Ohio State, you want those guys to be fifth-year seniors. You don't want to burn eligibility now during this particular season. So with the redshirt freshmen, totally a good point that some of those guys are not, that you thought maybe they'd push a little more and they're not there. But the true freshmen, even if they are, I don't think you'd put them on the field yet.
Matt Drolet next. Number 1, Jaden Reed is a difference maker on this team with his ability and leadership. 2, the discipline and game management of this team is pure ass. And 3, MSU hockey's back.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I don't know how good MSU hockey is going to be this year in terms of how many games they're going to win. They're not a perfect team. They're going to play some teams that are just better than them. But it's a noticeably different, aggressive style, and they look okay. Now, UMass Lowell, who they split with, is, I think, a little overrated this year. Not quite as good as they were a year ago. But anytime you have 24 shots in a period and, that looks like a team that's going to be fun to watch. And I've heard that from a number of fans who have been at games who are longtime MSU hockey fans. I think you're going to enjoy this team. And what would be amazing for this team is if they can somehow – they didn't even make the NCAA tournament. If in Adam Nightingale's first year they could be like just around the pairs-wise rankings discussion near the end of the NCAA tournament cutoff point, which is 16, if they're like ranked 20 throughout the year, if they could get to that level where people were a little excited about that possibility into January and February, that would go well. And by the way, you know what is really great at a hockey game? Flannel. If you go into a game at Munn Ice Arena, Muskox, you can go to Go Muskox. Fuck. Now I'm gonna screw these guys up now because now it's like Hopcat.
Muskox.
Go Muskox. GOMUSKOX.com. Check out Muskox. It's the S before the K. Muskox quality flannels.
Muskox.
And other apparel. Durable, high quality flannels built to last a lifetime. Timeless brand, strong and steadfast. And Jason, your voice actually really adds to that. We should just
Muskox.
Yeah, there you go.
Pat Caverly next. Number 1, how long are the coaches going to put up with Horst's personal fouls? I'm sick of watching it. Selfish. 2, I give Sparty a lot of credit for playing hard when it might have been way easy to quit. And 3, I still think Michigan by at least 31. Huge advantage at the line of scrimmage. IMHO, which means, in my honest opinion,
31 points. Was that what would your prediction if you had one today?
34-13.
Okay.
Gut feel.
Okay. Yeah, I think Michigan State. So here's the question: if you had Michigan State fans, most Michigan State fans would not sign up for a loss to Michigan, but I think there are a lot of them that would sign up for 34-13 today.
Caution. You are about to enter.
Why would you sign up for that?
Because there's a
Come on, Los.
But no. Don't do that to me because there's a chance it's 63-7. And you don't want that.
So you're saying before the game they would take 34-13. Who? What fan? No.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay, maybe I'm reading that wrong. I'm just
wrong
saying.
tea leaves. Up next, we got Caw Meow. Number 1, teams need a common sense coordinator, an average person with a direct connection to the coach to stop nonsensical decisions. 2, John L. Smith thinks the coaching at the end of regulation was questionable. And 3, volleyball is a great live watch. If you haven't gone, you should.
The move to Breslin is outstanding. They had like 7,300 fans there. Biggest crowd in MSU volleyball, home volleyball history. A really cool atmosphere. It clearly made sense to move that away from Jenison. And, it just...
Are they good?
Not this year. I mean, they're not...
Jesus, how? Do we have to wait for every sport?
Well, that's why they're changing coaches. Yeah, I mean, it's a new coach, first-year coach. And now they're competitive more so than I thought they were going to get trucked this year because the Big Ten is brutal in volleyball. But they've been fairly.
Will MSU baseball be good this year?
I don't know.
Next year on that
not looked into that one.
Field hockey.
Well, you're the field hockey expert. You're in the family. Okay. Yeah. The to the first.
She just said next year.
Is that what she said? Next year. Okay. Denver didn't Denver do something like this with? I don't know if it's an average person, but the Broncos bring in a
yes. Nathaniel Hackett needed I don't know what
common sense coordinator.
They didn't call it that, but they should. Yes.
Yeah. I'm with you. You just need somebody who's level headed, who's like, no, wait a sec, what?
But if you had to, but doesn't that as a fan base, like you hear that and you go, oh, we're fucked. Well, all of a sudden the guy goes, yeah, I just hired a guy to help me coordinate the timeouts.
To me, there's a lot going on in a game.
I understand. It's not for everyone. There's 32 of these jobs, but I'm just saying, especially in the NFL. But I know I can't do it, but I'm just saying I figured you guys would know how to do it when you get to that level of football.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking.
No, it's fair. And especially you're not the one actually calling the plays if you're Mel Tucker. Like, that's a big part of the gig. You got to get that right.
And clapping. It's a big part of the gig. Curtis Keekley. Number 1, if Slade and Henderson hadn't got hurt, MSU would be 6-1. 2, Jared Horst has the temperament of Solari and has more brain farts than Couch saying Hopcat hot takes. Muskox. 3, special teams coordinator Rob Ells needs to start shopping for a group deal with Hazelton for moving companies.
Ross Ells, but yeah.
Did I say Rob? It says Rob.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. The 6-1 one. So basically, obviously, Ohio State's the one. I think it's more than just Slade and Henderson, but I would say if Slade, Henderson, and Reed had been 100% healthy all season, that the 3 other losses are very different games. Now, do they win all of those? We just saw Michigan State have a tendency to commit dumb penalties and do dumb shit, right? So, like, I don't think they would have. Again, these are hot takes as we're asking for, but I don't think they'd be 6-1. But you could convince me they'd be 5-2, and you could, and certainly 4-3. I think they would be, but there's no doubt they didn't have the depth or the depth of leadership and veterans at certain positions, and it's hurt them.
Matt C. next. Number 1, Jaden Reed was able to overcome John L. Smith level coaching all by himself on Saturday. He's awesome. 2, without Reed, Tucker is probably up at the podium slapping himself and telling everyone to smile. And 3, Amir Speed is ass.
Yeah, there's a lot of Tucker, John L. Smith comparisons right now.
Well, rightfully so. No,
and the game management stuff is fine. I do not think you'll ever get to a point where Tucker goes, because he would do it in a different voice, be like, the players are playing their asses off, the coach is screwing it up. Yeah. Instead of, the players are playing their asses off, the coach is screwing it up. Ah! Can we fix that in post?
No way. We're going to play that for Tucker. Fuck your impression.
That was not Tucker. I didn't do, I can't do Tucker. I'm really bad at this.
It sounded like free Ubers, like OJ or something. Ride dog. Number 1, Mel's game management needs to be questioned. That last drive was managed worse than anything I've seen Dan Campbell do. This isn't the first time either. Penn State last year late. 2, Jaden Reed bailed Mel out from a ton of deserved criticism this week. And 3, give the players and Mel a ton of credit for getting off the mat this week. I'll never take a win for granted again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what they did. They got off the mat. And I think that's sometimes a hard thing to do. Like it's hard to win in college football, and it's hard to win in college football when you don't have a lot of advantages. And they found advantages, and so I do think there are places where they deserve an absolute ton of credit. And the coaching staff is part of that because ultimately it's their culture they're creating. That said, it's also fair to question some of the other stuff.
I give Rydog credit, too, because he says Jaden Reed bailed Mel out from a ton of criticism, but then also in 3 says give Mel credit. Because when you win, you get credit. When you don't, it's like, what the hell?
Yep, no.
It's normal to me. I don't know. People just get offended by that.
He's right. You can, and this is the thing. You can absolutely both give Mel Tucker credit and criticize in the same game. That's fair. And it's fair for any coach, and it's also fair at $9.5 million a year.
Kevin Keekley, are these got brothers up here?
I think so.
Curtis and Kevin.
I like them.
All right, this is Kevin's turn. Number 1, the unannounced change to the 4-3 proves Hazelton is gone at year's end. 2, Jaden Reed is the next Mel Gray.
Nice.
And 3, defensive backfield is better with a one-legged Henderson simply because he can communicate.
It's amazing what being able to communicate does. I mean, it should be like a class in second grade, just how to fucking communicate, you know? I mean, it makes life better because, like, on the playground growing up, I wasn't the most athletic, but I always had the best teams. I always had people fighting my fights for me, like, because I could communicate. That's what you want, right?
Yeah. Playground legend.
The Jaden Reed is the next Mel Gray. Now, some people probably don't know who Mel Gray is if you're of a, Gavin Haas, certain
Google
age.
it. Mel
Gray was, of our youth, the GOAT of returners. Like, I remember I didn't like Deion Sanders early on in his career only because he seemed to get more pub than Mel Gray as a returner, and I hated that because Mel Gray was unbelievable for the Lions in the late 80s, early 90s.
Are we just going to ignore his best one, number 1?
No.
The unannounced change to the 4-3 proves Hazelton's gone. That's the most interesting of the 3, in my opinion.
Well, it does, unless it was a collective idea that they just decided they needed to do.
Should they have announced it, though?
What do you do? Like, do you take
I'm just
out an
asking.
ad?
I'm asking if you do that. Is that something teams do? They don't really announce a change, do they?
They would never tell you it was coming. Okay. I mean, they're welcome. Like, in our Thursday show, we could do it before Twitter questions. We could announce the scheme changes.
Sure. Sports Guy 1919. Number 1, low scoring games don't always mean trash games. However, there has to be competent offenses stifled by great defenses. 2, thank God Jason is not my boss. My coworkers and I would be worried of being fired every day on the job. And 3, firing coaches is not always a solution. Well, sports guy, if I walked into the break room and you were taking a dump on the fucking break room table, you'd have to be fired. I'm not saying I would fire everyone for just minor little things, but when something's that bad, something has to happen in big-time football. Right? I don't want it either. I don't like firing coaches. I don't want it. I wish Dan Campbell could succeed, but Jesus, what is this? We're just going to keep watching this bullshit for the rest of our lives? We only have a short time here. At least we do.
So you ran like a paper company, like in the office. You come in there. This is a big boy paper company,
Yeah?
Yeah.
And what? Someone gets a paper cut? I don't fire them. They take a dump in the break room, you get fired. The rules are simple. They'll be on the wall in the break room. Do not shit in here, and you won't get fired. Spartan Bob. Number 1, MSU is beating Michigan. The Wolverines are going to sleepwalk through the bye week because they think we suck and we're going to be prepping daily. 2, if the defense remains healthy and has a strong second half, keep Hazelton. 3, 5 starters on this team will get drafted one day.
So 5 starters on the Michigan State team could get drafted. Now, that's totally fair. They got young guys. So you're probably thinking Keon Coleman. You're thinking Jaden Reed. You are thinking a tight end, maybe.
Cockburn.
Jacoby Windmon and Jacob Slade. That you could get there. You can get there pretty with veterans. I mean, how high I don't know, and where those guys will go, but yeah, you can get there. You can get there.
Alec in mid-Michigan. Number 1, normally I hate bye weeks for Michigan, MSU, and the Lions, but it feels like the best timing for each. Michigan can self-scout and get healthy. MSU coming off a much-needed win, a chance to gather themselves, and the Lions, yard work done today and no Sunday disappointment. 2, 41-17 does not do the beatdown justice. I was at the game in Ann Arbor Saturday. Michigan held the ball for 65% of the game, but it felt closer to 80. Total domination. Michigan by 100 Halloween weekend. People are talking. And 3, Coach Harbaugh's ability to hire and retain coaching talent is top tier. They dominate the trenches on both sides of the ball. Receivers block downfield, perfect bend but don't break defense, adjusting at halftime, etc. All have a hand in the success this season.
It was total domination. There's no question about that. The Michigan by 100. The question is how ugly could it get? Perhaps this game. Michigan State's not a team that's going to quit. They got enough dudes who care about this game, I'm just so glad we're going to have so much time to break this. Oh, it's going to be incredible. It's going to be incredible. But we said at least okay. So we've gone over at least 30, mid-30s points for Michigan. Your score in your head is 34-13.
Yeah.
What is the worst case scenario you think for Michigan State?
77-7.
That's bad.
100-0, I guess. I don't know. Adam versus next. Number one, a Jaden Reed pass to Jaden Reed might be the best option in the big games ahead. 2, if the Michigan Marching Band could have Winston Marsalis at halftime, the MSU Marching Band should have invited Graham to sing show tunes. I'd pay to see that. 3, Horst needs Skyman to cut down on the penalties.
By the way, if you've got somebody who's got unnecessary personal foul calls and holding calls in your life, recommend Skymint. You show up to any location, they'll answer all your questions, whether it's sleep, whether it's just chilling out, whether it's pain management. Skymint is here for you. Go to skymint.com for location information and daily specials. I get them emailed to me every day. Like, I know what the latest deal is, and I look, and I'm like, oh, yep, I'll take that. And if it's your first time at Skymint, you can use the Couch and the Rube promo code Couch and Rube 20 for 20% off. And by the way, Winston Marsalis, I believe, was it Winston or Branford, came to Sexton High School. I mean, this is no big deal. We had him at Sexton High School in jazz band class in 1994.
Which one did you have, though? Which brother?
I think it was Winston.
So it was so important to you. You remembered
Tom Jones, who was a fantastic band director at Sexton. I think he was at Everett until recently. Was really, really well connected in the national jazz scene.
Fun fact. Matt Boone, number one, Noah Kim is still the better quarterback choice, but it won't happen now. So here's to staring down. What the fuck? Hold on. Number one, Noah Kim is still the better quarterback choice, but it won't happen now. So here's to staring down one person. 2, MSU has improved on defense, but it's so flawed. 3, Jay Johnson is not good with getting guys in good positions to succeed. Just because we scored 34 does not mean offense is better.
Well, I think the offense was better.
Yeah.
It wasn't. Again,
it wasn't amazing.
Yeah,
but it was
20,
better.
21 in regulation, right? And some of the things that we thought might be there for Michigan State were, and that was their playmakers creating some advantages for them. How much that's enough, and to what degree they can do that, and this is on Jay Johnson to maximize that. There's absolutely no question about it. It's on this team also to cut down on some of these penalties and give themselves a chance because, against Wisconsin, they got away with this. With the clock management stuff and the penalties but if they have a 80-yard punt return called back against Michigan, they will not beat Michigan. They probably won't beat Michigan anyway. But that can't happen. You can't have a really dumb personal foul call late and
roughing the passer.
It's one thing to have targeting on a tackle. It's another thing if a guy's been on the ground for 2 seconds and you're like, let me throw my head in this shit. You can't have that stuff.
Gavin next. Number one, I said it before and I'll say it again. Jacoby Windman is a first-round talent. He looked amazing at linebacker tonight, and it really seems like it's his natural position. 2, major improvement from Scottie Hazelton this game. His defense shined with Slade and Henderson back, making crucial stops when needed and looking like a competent defense. I feel confident in Hazelton for the future. Wow. 3, this weekend was great for college football. Big-time matchups, game winners, overtime games. How can you not love college football?
Gavin riding the wave of emotion on everything, and including Scottie Hazelton. I feel confident in Hazelton for the future. That is the first time those words have been uttered on this show.
It is a hot take show.
Yeah, but props. Look, I think it was a good day for Scottie Hazelton. There were good results. They made a clear change. They had some guys back, and it all kind of came together. And they're going to place better teams. Let's see what they do against Michigan when it's being run down their throat a little bit.
Jonathan B. next. Number one, the number one reason Thorne is still starting is chemistry with our best player, Jaden Reed. And 2, most Spartans, I'm 1, aren't used to the ups and downs of big boy recruiting. 3, if young Gavin needs help with his college essay, I'm happy to lend my expertise. Always help little Spartan dogs.
There you go, Gavin. Jonathan B. here for you. We can connect you if
he's going to write it for you.
Yeah, you don't want to get in that habit. Just a little.
What do you mean? What do you want, Jonathan? $100?
No, the idea is just a little.
He's going to write it for him.
Is that what he said? Oh. Lend his expertise. He didn't say do the work.
Just write it for him.
That's. I can tell how you went through
school here. Barely graduated.
So no, but I want to get
listen
into
to me.
These are good though. I do think. Look, Thorne's connection with Jaden Reed without question, an important thing. Like if that's your best playmaker, and you've got amazing chemistry with the quarterback, that has to factor in. Number 2 is interesting though. I do think this is going to be these next couple of years, the recruiting classes, the number of guys that Michigan State is trying to flip and people are trying to flip out of Michigan State's program is going to drive MSU fans crazy for a couple reasons. One, they haven't been at this level of recruiting, but also it's very it's just the opposite of what D'Antonio was. Like D'Antonio didn't want anybody going on a visit once they committed to Michigan State, so you had to be sure. So very few guys of his guys flipped, and they didn't really try to flip other people. Now, later there was some stuff that happened, and they would always act like that, and then they'd flip a number of MAC guys if they really wanted them. But so there was some hypocrisy in that. But it is a different game, and it's going to take there are going to be some roller coaster of emotions happening as guys come and go.
DC Spartan next. Number 1, the play calling and clock management at the end of the game has me thinking Tuck might end up being the next James Franklin rather than Nick Saban. Why were we playing for a field goal with the kickers we have? And 2, Illini to win the Big Ten West and give Ohio State a hell of a fight in Indy. And 3, we absolutely must be better against Corum next week than we were against Allen this week. I was wondering why Wisconsin did anything but hand the ball off to that dude. He was running all over us.
Yeah, I mean, I know they were better against the pass. You're facing Graham Mertz. I was not that impressed with. And Michigan State, to their credit, also got after Mertz. I mean, that is exactly what you need to do with him, and they needed to do that with some other quarterbacks they face, is find a way to get home. But nothing really in that game was, I think, overly promising against the run for Michigan State, which is a little bit of a problem in 2 weeks. The Illini give Ohio State a hell of a – look, I'm intrigued by this Illinois team, but I don't know that anybody – I don't want to say that because the way if Michigan can push Ohio State around again, and I don't know that they can, but Michigan can beat anybody right now.
Spartan 18770 next. Number 1, everything is shaping up for another upset in 2 weeks.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to stop real quick. Right now, and I don't do a lot of live things, but the Eagles are playing the Cowboys. And look, this is a great example of things you can do in advertising. They didn't cut away to commercial. They have an ad on the other side, but there's no action going on. So they keep you're able to see the game. Like this is
I'm watching
getting
Cooper
creative.
Rush stand there. Who gives a shit?
I'm just saying.
But that's not helping.
There's
It's still a
things to
long
do.
commercial.
No, now they're
You're just seeing a camera with the game on and a
boom.
commercial running. Yeah, but you would have been back from commercial break by now.
Okay.
Doesn't help anything. You
Sorry.
stop the show for that?
Yeah, apologies.
Jesus. It's midnight. Spartan. Everything is shaping up for another upset in 2 weeks. The team is getting healthy. Their confidence will be high, and they will hear all the disrespect from Michigan and the media. 2, MSU is screwed if Tucker doesn't fire Johnson and Hazelton. MSU is screwed if Tucker fires Johnson and Hazelton. 3, Graham goes to the hockey game, and they go down 3-0. He leaves in the third, and the team makes a game of it. He goes to the volleyball game, and they lose 3 straight sets. Graham is to MSU athletics as COVID is to old, out-of-shape fat people. Stop infecting our teams, Graham.
It was not, the timing was not great. Although I did lead, the volleyball team was already down 2-0. I was hoping there was a really close game. I was hoping they'd win that game in some ways because it would make it easy for me to leave. But the timing worked. I was able to watch the end of the volleyball, talk to Leah Johnson, put together a column, and get back over for the end of hockey. So it actually worked out perfectly in that sense.
Nice. John Krager next. Number 1, I've never seen so much ineptitude and so much brilliance from an offense all in one game from players and coaching staff alike. 2, I want to be happy for the win, but when I see things like that botched field goal at the end of regulation happened, I told the people sitting around me that is a fireable offense. That's inexcusable. And 3, I don't get paid millions of dollars a year to call plays, but the people I was sitting with and myself were doing a pretty good job of calling out what MSU was going to run on offense. That's not good. They will need to be way more unpredictable to stand a chance in Ann Arbor.
It is interesting to see the I coming into this year, Jay Johnson was a guy that was sort of universally, if not beloved, very respected for what he was able to do last year. And that has turned. And I still, I don't know, maybe I just like his ability to communicate and I've enjoyed conversations with him, and I like some of the things I've seen. But he could use a game where he's able to really, look, they've got a bona fide pro, I think, on their team, the way he's playing right now, and Jaden Reed. You've got to find a way to feature that guy. I think you can get Keon Coleman to be a problem. You saw, with Malik Carr, those guys, he's got to find a way to keep using these guys, and he can change the perception of this. G.E.
Miller, number one. Some of us have called for a 4-3 defense with more man coverage since Washington. It worked, and it would have resulted in wins against Minnesota and Maryland, too. 4-2-5 zone with a ragtag group of college guys will never work here. Keep it simple to be competitive every game. 2, some of us have called for more Collins, Barker, Carr, and Coleman since the Washington game. It worked, and it would have resulted in wins against Minnesota and Maryland, too. Jay Johnson should be at least as much on the hot seat as Scottie H. Players saved him from bad play calls. And 3, the staff should not be 3 to 4 games behind the fans in recognizing things on the field. They need to be more self-critical and better at game management and adjustments. That is what made D'Antonio great, who ultimately made the call and the adjustments. And why did that take so long?
Yeah, no, I think it's a collective. And there's no doubt that the 5 defensive back deal didn't work and everything they were doing for this team. Again, if we didn't see that defense, though, with Henderson, and we didn't get to see that with Henderson and Jacob Slade much up front. So in fairness to that, too, it might have looked a little different, but it clearly wasn't working. It clearly wasn't working earlier than this. I don't think it needed to wait this long for sure.
Nick Palmer next. Number 1, you could never trust Oklahoma State. 2, we all wish we were in Knoxville last night. And 3, it's time for Michigan voters to amend the state's constitution to remove elected university boards, Michigan, MSU, and Wayne State, and let the governor appoint them. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah, there seems to be less strife on the boards around the state that are university trustees that are governor appointed, and obviously there's some partisanship that can go on there, and there's, you could still have terms though, and that helps, and those really shouldn't be partisan jobs anyway. You're trying to do what's best for a university, and clearly what the Michigan State Board of Trustees and Michigan's, frankly, and Wayne State's had its own issues, and nobody knows who the fuck they're voting for anyway. When I vote for Wayne State Board of Trustees, I put in Pat Zarkowski. And I mentioned this the other day, the former played basketball at Wayne State, years and years ago. He was a news editor at the Kalamazoo Gazette when I lived there, by the way. I'm not going to vote for somebody I don't know, so I just write in, Pat Zarkowski. Nobody knows who most of these people are anyway.
Jake Lecuyer. I think that's his name. Number 1, Scottie Hazelton has deservedly gotten heat for the D's performance, but the return of 2 starters this week showed the impact of injuries. Cementing the switch to 4-3 defense for the year seems obvious, given personnel. 2, without defensive injuries, fans would pay more attention to Jay's atrocious management of the offense. His seat should be as hot as Scottie's. Playmakers all over the field. Team is not putting them in a position to win. And 3, the clock mismanagement at the end of the game deserved to earn the coaching staff a loss. Coaching malpractice, not saving a TO, a timeout, to set your kicker and ice the game. Cannot overstate how lucky the staff was that those decisions didn't lose the game.
Yeah, because that would have been the story. It absolutely would have been, and that is fair. I mean, they were bailed out to some degree now, but that would have been a big part of the story. That and the penalties, and just sort of the undisciplined nature. So it would have come back on the staff if they hadn't made those plays at the end. Let's take one last break. We come back. Eric Larson, Therese up next, Sparty 95, Clint Bainey, One Ball Bainey, Cucker Tarlson, Jay Riemenschneider, some good ones, some regulars, some great hot takes still to go. Couch in the Rue, presented by Skymint Premium Cannabis, and our Sunday night show brought to you by Muskox Quality Flannels.
Wherever you are on your cannabis journey, let Sky Mint Premium Cannabis be your guide, your friend, and your place. Whether you're curious about cannabis or a seasoned connoisseur, Sky Mint's knowledgeable staff will help you with a vast selection of products to choose from to fit your needs. Sky Mint believes access to the best cannabis helps people do good and feel good, so they grow it right here in Michigan, giving you high-quality, locally grown cannabis at highly accessible prices. Visit skymint.com for special offers and location information throughout Michigan, and use the promo code CouchAndRube20 for 20% off your first visit. Sky Mint Cannabis. You'll love this place. Firekeepers Online Casino and Sportsbook is the site to play. Get your Vegas on right now from your phone, tablet, or laptop. All the hottest slots and tables, plus sports betting featuring in-game wagering. Go with the name you know. Firekeepers. Get your first casino deposit and sports wager matched up to $500 each. Visit firekeeperscasino.com to download the mobile app today. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and located in Michigan. Gambling problem? Call the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-270-7117.
Find Couch and the Rude podcasts on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, CastBox, and the Rube's favorite podcast addict.
Couch and the Rube, presented by Sky Mint Premium Cannabis, and our Sunday night show presented by Muskox Flannels. Go to gomuskox.com. Check out their selection of outerwear. Really fantastic looking stuff. And Jason and I are excited to get into this. And you'll see us in these flannels soon enough. All right, back to your hot takes.
Eric Larson next. Number one, we need to move to the marble method of selecting our football rankings. Every FBS team starts with 100 marbles, 10 bonus marbles for every P5 team on their schedule. Win at home or neutral site, take 20% of your opponent's marbles. Win on the road, take 25%. That's it. That's the whole algorithm. 2, Alabama will still find a way to finagle their way into the college football playoff. And 3, I said last week that PB&Js are the best. Glad Tucker acknowledged that this week.
Yeah, I haven't decided whether I want it to be a thing or not. Whether it's like keeping it simple, PP&Js. But simple for me is like sushi in a grocery cart. But to each their own. The marble method though, I want to read more about this because and there's a link from Eric and I'll go ahead and retweet that later here. It does look, they're not going to do this, but it actually is sort of interesting. The idea that it's very. Intent and scheduling would absolutely matter here, and that's what I like about it.
Trees and her weekend highlight. Number 1, John Hamm Santa is almost as sexy as Santa Rube.
Love it.
And 2, more World Cup commercials, please.
Thank you, Skymint.
Because John Hamm is in the World Cup commercials.
Yes.
And she's attracted to him.
They're good commercials, too. They're funny. Like, if people haven't seen them, it's basically him playing Santa and realizing the World Cup. It's a World Cup.
Is it funny?
The World Cup's in December this year, and it gets in the way of Santa.
But do you chortle? Do you laugh when you see it though?
I
or
enjoy
you just
it.
it's not as ass as other commercials? That's what you want to say.
I
give credit for people to try, but in those commercials, it's really hard. But yeah, I'm just more mad at this Jack Hamm guy, John Hamm. What's his name?
Yeah. And by the way, you got an issue there, don't
Carmen
you?
Electra. Yeah. I'm gonna have to get Carmen Electra. Mrs. Santa Claus. Sparty 95. Number 1. Sorry, Sky Mint, but for the first time since Game 2, I did not need you after Saturday's game. I was high on life. How do you do that? 2, my dad always said defensive backs were guys who either couldn't catch or run routes well enough to play receiver. Our defensive backs made him look right. 2 drop picks thrown right to him. And 3, I hope Michigan and Michigan State is not the Fox Big Noon game. It should be bad enough already, although now we at least have a puncher's chance with Henderson and Slade back and Jaden Reed back at full strength.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see the Big Noon. I wouldn't be surprised. There's some people think it's going to be a night game, and I haven't confirmed that or anything like that. So you might actually have that game at night on Halloween weekend.
Will they be there? Gus Johnson?
I'm sure that. Well, actually, no, they'll be at the Big Noon game. I don't know. I don't know what else is that weekend. It's become a little much for Fox. They've got to stop being at Michigan, and they've got to stop just doing the Big Noon show from there. It's one thing to have the game on your network, ESPN's had games on their network all the time. They've got Pam Ward and ESPN2 game with Chris Spielman. That doesn't mean they're there for game day. Like, you don't have to be there just because it's your thing.
You mean Fox? I don't think Fox was at Ann Arbor, were they?
Yeah, they were this past week. Yeah,
Were
right.
they?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh.
They don't need a ton of that. They had two defensive backs though who were in the right places, and that's at least something. And maybe that's helping with Henderson, including Dylan Tatum as a freshman, who I thought, other than a sure pick, I thought he played pretty well.
Clint One Ball Bainey next. Number 1, if sued for copyright infringement, I'd change my name from One Ball Bainey to Half Sack Jack. 2, no matter our record this year, our number 1 goal is to keep our recruiting class intact. We've already lost one to Auburn last week. And 3, Tucker needs to bring in as many 1990 Spartans the next 2 weeks to mentally prepare us for the varmints. We could beat those bastards. Rest in peace, Highland Dixon. Bonus take. Is it too soon to start talking about how abusive Miss Piggy was to Kermit the Frog? Imagine if the shoe was on the other frog leg.
Love you, One Ball.
Wait, hold on.
I used to do a pretty good Kermit the Frog here. I can do that. Although Kermit, it's the same as Bert and Ernie. It's the same as Ernie. It's Kermit the Frog here. It's him. Hey, Bert. It's the same voice. Different than Mel Tucker, obviously, that impression. And the Big Papi impression, naturally.
Big Papi could be the worst.
So fucking city.
So bad.
Highland Hickson, yeah. No, I remember Highland Hickson from my youth.
Wow,
very good running back. Very good running back. No, he died of stomach cancer.
I know, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, coming out of your terrible Big Papi thing, I'm like, oh yeah, rest in peace, Highland.
It truly is. And if this win also keeps the wheels from coming off, and again, I don't even think a bowl game is that important. Like, I think, obviously, bowl game's better than no bowl game, but I don't know to what extent when you're recruiting, if it doesn't feel like the wheels have come off, if you're 5-6 going into your final game, and so you've been sort of in the hunt all year, do you really get that much juice from a third-tier bowl and played in front of a sparse crowd somewhere that, sort of gets made fun of? I don't know that you do. I don't know that. I know they get extra practice and all that stuff, but it's
all about the practice.
It's the recruiting class is everything, and so whatever matters for that is what it is.
Cucker, Tarleton, number 1, hashtag Hazelton hot seat, hashtag Glenn Gowen. 2, MSU is actually a pretty good football team. 3, pet peeve. When soccer refs give players a chance to hold a full-on judicial court processing of a clear foul, they might as well bring in a full jury for every player-ref dispute. And the fact that it works sometimes is the worst part.
It doesn't usually work. It's just when there's when the VAR chimes in, it's an eye in the sky, so to speak. Usually that doesn't actually work. But I'm with you. They need to take control. And I like in MLS this year, they would card you real quick if you weren't like the team captain. They had one guy who was really allowed to talk to the refs.
Jay Riemenschneider, number 1, the Michigan turnover buffs fit Tucker and MSU more as a flashy show-off type thing than Michigan. In case you didn't know, Graham, Cartier Buffalo horn glasses have been a big deal in Detroit for quite a while now.
I didn't even know what those are. Do you?
Buffs, bro.
Yeah, me? No.
Yeah, Kate Cunningham has them.
Oh, okay.
I think. 2, Michigan's dominant win over Penn State will be completely glossed over because of all the other big storylines that happened on an awesome Saturday of college football. And 3, I think hunting season doesn't affect Michigan as much as MSU because of different kinds of fans and students. Michigan is academia, white-collar, international kids, not growing up hunting type. MSU's blue-collar, I can fix my own car, fish on weekends with a six-pack, no judgment either way. Extra take. I'm sad the college football season is already more than half over, but still excited that college basketball will be here in a hurry.
November is the best when they collide. The football games get important. The basketball games are new and fresh. I think that's a little bit, and obviously of a I'm going to say gross generalization, but and certainly they are different alumni bases and different fan bases, and so there probably is some of that. And I think Michigan probably gets affected by it too. They just have a stronger, season ticket base, so it's not as and it's just not quite as felt as much They also play that Ohio State game every year, which people aren't going to skip for hunting season, where Michigan State's usually got like Rutgers, which doesn't help at all. And I don't think anybody's skipping over what Michigan did to Penn State. I've seen tons of love out there for that. I think people note it as a win that's worth mentioning.
Ben Jen next. Number one, I like Jay Johnson until that Jaden Reed screen pass behind the sticks and no timeouts left. Even Thorne hated it, but he's the one that should have called out of it. All coaches need vast improvement. 2, Xavier Henderson playing all games this year would have been worth 2 wins, and we'd be 5-2. 3, MSU is so undisciplined. Horse shove, Fletcher targeting, penalties. That's more upsetting than bad play and scheme. And everyone's favorite bonus. MSU Pope hat guy is greater than waffle guy.
Yeah, I think 5
Jim Comparoni?
Yeah.
The Pope.
I think 5-2 is possible. 4-3, 5-2 would be in there if they'd been completely healthy all year. And just think the vibe would be different. There'd be, it'd be a totally different deal. Although people may be more stunned. Like right now, I think people are properly the right amount of apprehensive about how the Michigan game will go. If things had gone a little bit better, I don't know that they would have a great understanding of the difference in those two programs.
Joshua Bishop next. Number one, watching this team is basically watching the Lions on Saturdays. Nah, I don't know. 2, regardless of sport, if they can't figure out a video review in under 2 minutes, the call on the field stands. And 3, if we want any chance of winning in 2 weeks, we can't talk shit in the tunnel at halftime. Doesn't seem to work out well for other teams.
Didn't work for Penn State, that's for sure. Competitive game, gotten a little bit of a scuffle, got their asses beat. Do you like the idea that usually things don't go beyond 2 minutes, but do you like the idea that there's just like a deadline? Like, we can't figure it out. We're just going to...
I don't even like the 2-minute part. I think someone should be up in the booth looking at these calls, whether or not, and shoot it down there to say, we don't need to look, get under the hood or something. You have to get rid of that aspect because it's going to take 2 minutes because they want to call there's going to be a timeout and a commercial break. So that takes 2 minutes, right? It just seems like they're all more than 2 minutes.
Yeah, it does feel
and like at
that.
Spartan Stadium, they have to go all the way to the opposite end of the field if the play is on the other side. So it's like it doesn't seem it needs to be more efficient.
By the way, Gavin says, "Damn you people for making me stay up this late." Gavin, we appreciate you. We'll write you a note for tomorrow's class.
Yeah. Spartan Spiro 21 next. Number one, after watching this game and how this defense played, I kind of understand Tucker's statement. It's not schematic when talking about issues with the defense throughout the year. Injuries have played a huge part in the story of this season that we probably quickly overlook or don't think about. How long is this? Watching Henderson, Slade, Brule back on the field made me realize how big those injuries were. And 2, okay, Jesus. Nice to finally see some defensive adjustments. Moving Widman to linebacker and off the line paid dividends. Moving Brandon Wright to be consistently on the edge was a factor all day, and some blitzes called that finally generated some pressure. These are too long.
Yes.
These are too long. 3, when that Western Michigan coach told Graham back in 2019 that Jaden Reed could be the best wide receiver at MSU ever, I wrote it off as hyperbole. But, man, I can't remember a wide receiver at MSU as impactful as him.
Well, they've had receivers as good and better. I mean, Charles Rogers, certainly, and Plaxico Burress, and I mean, back when they didn't throw the ball, Andre Rison. So they've had some, but yeah, no, and that was Robin Hook, the play-by-play guy. I thought he had a chance to be one, and he wasn't wrong. He's become one of the best. Robin Hook's covered some guys like Jennings and all those guys, and I don't know that he's quite that level. And by the way, these are long. So at the end here, we're going to have a few that are some short, some long, some of the longer ones at the end. And so if you can really tailor your thoughts to keep them tight, like just not stream of consciousness, it helps us out, and you'll be higher up in the show. That doesn't mean all the bad ones are at the bottom because we gotta have a mix. But
that's a great idea. Leave all of the long ones at the bottom
for Jason
after 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yes.
Jesus. Neurotic Pants. Number one, I'm resentful of the MSU coaches and their hype, remuneration, unmerited swagger, etc. The kids are playing their stupid hearts out. 2, bitching is fun, but stop for a damn moment. Jaden Reed made a fucking extraordinary catch. And 3, good, bad, Nightingale is ahead of schedule.
It's early with MSU hockey. They're 2-2, but a good first 4 games certainly, and the style of play, there's a little something more to them, and it's definitely a more exciting brand of hockey than they played in recent years.
Couch on fire next. Number 1, a Fox commentator saying nice things about the MSU coach. I almost passed out. 2, not a statement game, but the Spartans have had some classic OT games since 2000, haven't they? 3, I watched a Red Wings game and a basketball game broke out. 6-8, 6-6, and 6-3 line. Crazy. And bonus, Jim Leonard looks like a sophomore.
Still a young-looking dude. I didn't realize the Wings had a line. 6'8" hockey players, you don't see that very often. That's incredible. You watch the Blackhawks are going to be ass this year. Are you still going to be forced to watch a lot of games with Therese?
I'm not forced to watch it. She has her own
setup. Will she watch?
Setup.
Will she watch if they hit rock bottom this year? Will she?
Oh
keep
God,
watching?
yeah. She loves the Blackhawks no matter what.
Okay.
But yeah, she either has it on her phone or she watches it on one of our 94 televisions.
Yeah, and you're right on the classic OT games. There have been a number of. I bet that's with every team. Although you go back even before that. Like I remember being at a game in like '98 with Cedric Irvin and the 25-yard run to beat Indiana, and they played Antoine Randall. There's been a lot of classic OT games.
Some dude next. Number 1, for the most part, of course, I really love our fan base. I was unable to make it to the game, so watching on TV and monitoring this win on Twitter was yet another unique experience. Most of the fans tweeting, I would not want to sit next to them at a game. When your team is an average team at best, this is the type of win you're going to get. 2, the broadcast was total ass. Mispronunciations, horrible observations, and not knowing shit about shit. That's Tim Brando for you. 3, I would love to see a recreation of the Cask & Company live read with Jason in the studio, but I need Snoopy and or Linus on the piano. Am I the only one? Sky Mint can do these things to you.
Appreciate you, some dude. Yeah, I didn't. I've heard some complaints about the broadcast. I didn't.
I do like Brando, but I don't know. He interjects too much of his own opinion, and as a play-by-play guy, I just feel like you shouldn't really be doing that.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I always go back and watch the game, but I usually do it on my phone because the phone is the Xfinity app is really good for fast forwarding, and I don't usually listen to it.
Tillman, it's just like, all right.
Yeah.
Tyrone Couch, number 1. Despite the win, I don't trust this MSU team. I'm going to cheer every minute, but not getting my hopes up. 2, is Xavier Henderson so important that he can completely change the defense? Did we just find our next defensive coordinator? And 3, the Fox Sports app, great to start the game at the beginning because you were a good husband and missed the first half. Awful because if your shithead nephew stops the game, you have to start at the beginning and can't fast forward or miss the second half. I hate kids, but saw OT.
Yeah. This is a safe place to complain about kids. You can come right on here and say, fuck kids. And
Jesus, what? We don't say that.
You're the one who came up with it.
Yeah, but we don't say it like that.
That's rough. Yeah,
it's out of context. I mean, we have to cut that up and have to play that on the soundboard now forever.
Fix it in post. Yeah, it's not great.
I mean, we don't say it like that, but just kids are ass, man.
Kids are ass. There you go. That's what I meant to say. Kids are ass. We'll fix that.
Couch in the Rube, we say fuck kids.
Yeah, that's not great. It doesn't sound good either, does it? Does not. Not good. Not for a guy
who
who
a call saying that you're kicked off the coaching staff.
Yeah, not for a guy who coaches other people's 6-year-olds and walks around to preschool every day for work with his mother for a
walk. The show on speaker at the game.
Not great. Xavier Henderson, I don't know what he'll do in life. I've not asked him if coaching is something he wants to do, but
please ask him.
He is somebody who certainly will, I think, be successful at it.
Mark D'Antonio. Wait. Fox Sports app, why would he have to start at the beginning? I don't get
It's
that.
weird. Like sometimes it's a good question.
To watch it on there?
I don't think you can pause.
Really? In 2022?
Yeah, and things can go wrong with it. I know what he's talking about because I use it sometimes in the broadcast in the press box, and I have some issues once in a while. But usually I can get back to where I am, so I don't know what happened.
That is terrible. D'Antonio, Mark D'Antonio. Number 1, yesterday's win was huge for team morale, but there are still some glaring issues that need to be cleaned up quick for Mel and his staff, particularly the utter lack of discipline. The end of regulation was coaching malpractice with zero urgency. 2, winning in the trenches was the identity of Mark D'Antonio's great teams. After Jack Conklin left, Coach D thought he could turn any nobody, O-line recruit into an All-American, and the program hasn't reclaimed that identity since, finding it will be the biggest X factor in Mel's tenure. And 3, MSU found itself demoted to the second screen yesterday on mute while Bama, Tennessee got the big screen with sound. Thank God, because I couldn't have listened to that haughty dipshit Tim Brando called that awful game. By far the worst, corniest play-by-play.
It is interesting that I don't think D'Antonio ever was a great offensive line recruiter, although sometimes they had guys who didn't pan out. When they had a number of 4-star guys there, and I don't know that he got he thought he could just turn anybody into a All-American. I do think though that they did get a little, their ability to unearth unheralded prospects and develop them. They did. You might be right on that just overall collectively, whereas they were really finding guys who were missed, who were incredible for a while. And later on, it felt like just random dude, random 2-star recruit who you couldn't actually develop. Does that make sense? That was long, too. That was long-winded. I apologize for that.
No, it's fine. Keep going. You got another thought? It's going to take 10 minutes. Get us here till 1 a.m. Michael Garnett next. Number 1. Though he's been hurt, Thorne's regression is concerning. He keeps missing open receivers because he's locking in on specific targets. Goldman was wide open on 2 different drives, one of which would have been the game-winning TD and prevented OT. And he's missed Jaden Reed to either?
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. 2, I like Tuck's aggressiveness, but is it fair to start questioning some of his coaching decisions? A pass interference call on the final drive of regulation bailed him out of an otherwise failed 4th down play near midfield, which led to the bad clock management and horribly executed field goal. Oh, we got another one. Jesus. 3, though our defense played better, enough mistakes were made in all 3 phases that I'm terrified for Ann Arbor. Hate your rival can make up for some things, but it can't overcome all of the other issues. Won't surprise me if the spread opens at...
I cut the best part of it. My bad, Michael. Let's say 22.5 is what it is. I don't know what it was, and I apologize. I think the spread is going to be 22.5. Is that your guess, too?
I would think so.
Yeah, right around there.
Yeah. Hans. Number 1, James Madison is ranked, and we're stuck having rock fights with fellow Big Ten bottom feeders. This is an insult to the memory of Biggie Munn and John Hanna. Their struggle resulted in nothing. It's intense. 2, love Jacoby Windman at linebacker. We look competent on defense now. And 3, MSU still has its destiny in its hands. Beat, go, blow, and you will live forever in Spartan lore. Deliver justice by crushing the souls of those who spit on you. And bonus, Go Blow is having a terrific season. Now let's go ruin it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of years, and when Michigan State was at its peak, I thought one of the best things about where the program was that just beating Michigan wasn't enough. And yes, that was part of turning the program and was flipping the script on that rivalry. But it got to the point that Michigan was just part of the run, and beating Ohio State was just as important, and trying to win Big Ten championships. But in a year like this, Michigan is everything. That's the absolute season.
Jake Hawkins next. Number 1, great win. Felt good to see a classic Big Ten style game, but I'll say this. Mel Tucker almost had a Dan Campbell-like moment at the end of regulation. Would have been second-guessing himself had MSU lost. And I know Peyton Thorne threw the game winner, but how did he not see Keon wide open? And 2, damn the person who scheduled this MSU game at a time when 2 other classics were happening. I was able to put the Alabama-Tennessee game on my phone to watch it, only to find out Oklahoma State and TCU made things interesting. College football needs a NFL red zone-like channel for a chance to go double box. And 3, here's some irony. 10 to 11 years ago, Brett Bielema was coaching at Wisconsin. Paul Chryst is his offensive coordinator. They beat MSU with Pat Narduzzi as defensive coordinator. Chryst goes to Pittsburgh, then back to Wisconsin. Narduzzi goes to Pitt. Bielema beats Chryst, then gets fired, and yet Narduzzi is still coaching.
We appreciate you, Jake. I would actually enjoy a red zone style channel college football thing. What would be interesting about that, though, is what they have in football. It's, they have a TV contract that deals with, the NFL. And in college football, you have different conferences, different league, different TV deals. it would be.
You can figure that out and get rid of the players like Pat McAfee does that college thing. Like I know people might enjoy it. I don't enjoy it. So put games on where you can watch 2 double box games.
So here's
on that channel.
Okay, that
instead of McAfee, like guys that are just talking about the Manning thing.
Right.
I'm for Monday night. I'm sorry. I'm not a fan of that.
I like the Manning one. But no, I know what you're saying. But you could have. I mean, I guess every conference could pay into something where they had an agreement with, some channel that was going to do, was going to have that red zone sort of thing. I don't know if the other networks that carry their games would enjoy that. If like that was an ESPN property and Fox had the game, would they want them cutting in for if it's taking away their ratings? There would be lots of issues there.
But about ratings anymore. Everybody just wants you to pay for their app and all this shit. Just everybody get together. You're going to get your slice of the pie. Just make it easier on the viewer.
I want you in the board meetings. I want you in the board meetings badly.
I'll be in there. Believe me. Upper Deck Jerk Guy to end this thing. Number 1, I get motion sickness watching Spartan fans jumping off and on the bandwagon. 2, Windman. That's the take. And 3, 2 weeks prep. Better bring out some creativity.
Yeah, no, everything you got, you throw at this game. Whatever was in, whatever bag of tricks you haven't used.
The kitchen sink.
Yeah. The old flea flicker 4 or 5 times. See if that works. We appreciate you and all of your hot takes. We really do. You guys make the show. You produce it for us.
Yeah, sorry for complaining.
No, sometimes we'd love them to be a little bit tighter, but you know what? We beggars can't be choosers, right?
Please.
Just for Jason's sake and for Gavin, so he can get to sleep when we do these Sunday night shows a little later like we did tonight. We also, of course, appreciate Skymint Premium Cannabis. Go to skymint.com for location information and specials. And our new sponsor, Muskox. I got it right, sort of. Muskox. Flannels. Local company. And go to gomuskox.com and check them out. We'll do a lot more with them every Sunday night for quite a while. Good show, brother.